Chapter 1047. On this side, Chu Liyue solved Lin Qifei's problem and went back with Debao to wait for the arrival of the next day. However, Lu Yi on the other side was not so relaxed. Lin Tianfeng made it clear that he was on Lin Qifei's side. As long as Chu Liyue could cure Lin Qifei's illness, then no matter what she did, he would try his best to protect her. What's more, in the end, this matter was provoked by Lu Yi first. If he didn't make the first move, Chu Liyue wouldn't have fought back like this. Therefore, Lu Yi was in a disadvantageous position. After Lin Tianfeng expressed that he would not help, he sternly warned him and ordered him to never do anything wrong in the future. He even reprimanded Lu Yue. Such a series of actions completely suppressed the brother and sister's arrogance. Lu Yi originally wanted to argue a few more words, but he was forcibly pulled away by Lu Yue. Lu Yue didn't dare to let Lu Yi stay in the Lin family and simply went back with him. When she arrived at the Lu family, as soon as she entered the door, she ordered all the servants to leave. After everyone left, Lu Yue stretched out her hand and fiercely poked Lu Yi's forehead. "Do you have a brain?" Lu Yi's forehead was scratched by her sharp nails, and his anger and grievance erupted in an instant. "Sister, how can you treat me like this? Am I still your brother?" "It's because you're my brother that I scolded you like this. If someone else dared to do this, I would have sent someone to deal with it in private." Lu Yue looked at him with a look of disappointment. "Do you know how much trouble you'll bring us by doing this today? When I asked you before, who was the person who injured your men, you refused to tell me. I didn't expect it to be Duguyu. What were you thinking? Don't you know that she just became Lin Qifei's celestial physician 2 days ago? How would I know this?" Lu Yi also felt wronged and shouted. Who would have thought that such a lowly outsider would have such great means? Lin Tianfeng and his son were really stupid. Did they really think that Duguyu could cure Lin Qifei's illness? "That thing is in his body," Lu Yue shouted in shock. "Shut up." Looking at Lu Yue's angry face, Lu Yi realized that he had said something wrong, and a trace of timidity and guilt appeared in his heart. "If you dare to say such things again, you dash." Lu Yue raised her hand and wanted to slap him. She glared at him angrily for a while, but in the end, she couldn't bring herself to do it. She angrily sat down on the chair and slammed her hand on the table. "Why do I have such a disappointing brother like you?" It was one thing for him to cause trouble on a normal day, but now, he had actually caused trouble to this extent. "Do you think it was easy for me to reach my current position in the Lin family?" Louis scratched his head and stepped forward. "Sis, don't be angry. You can't blame me for this, can you? It's all because of that Duguyu. She's too strange. Not only did she hurt my people, but she also took away my opportunity to go there. Sis, you have to avenge me." Speaking of this, Lu Yue's heart was filled with resentment. She finally managed to persuade Lin Tianfeng to take Lu Yi with them. But who would have thought that they would be replaced before they left? "That Duguyu does have some skills." She clenched her hands and muttered in a low voice. A trace of hatred flashed across her eyes. "That's right. Sis, think about it. She's an outsider with a child. How did she manage to take on 8 of my subordinates by herself? Those people's strength is not weak." Lu Yue rolled her eyes. "Since she can break in from the outside, she must be at least a demigod. Isn't it easy for her to beat up your men?" Lu Yi shook his head. "Sis, do you think I didn't think of this? Because of this, when I sent people over, I had already selected the strongest few." He stretched out his finger. "Among the 8 people, half of them are rank 9 martial artists, and 2 of them are peak rank 9. As for the rest, the weakest is a rank 8 martial artist. With such a lineup, is it not enough to deal with a fledgling demigod?" Lu Yue's expression changed slightly when she heard this. Besides, even if they are not a match for a demigod together, their strengths should not be too far apart. How could they be beaten up like that? All 8 of them were beaten half to death. The tendons in their hands and feet were torn, and they were completely crippled. To be able to do such a thing, it was enough to show that Duguyu was vicious and merciless. "What you said is not without reason." Lu Yue fell into deep thought. "Besides, she's still a rank 7. No, she should be a rank 8 celestial physician now." It could be seen that Duguyu's talent in celestial physician was extremely high. Generally speaking, people with talent in this area would usually focus on research, and very few people would be distracted by martial artist cultivation. That Dugu, I wonder how old she is, if she is really in her early 20s like she looks, and she's an outsider. Then her talent and potential are really, Luiwer muttered, and her heart was shocked. At first she did not feel it, but now the more she thought about it, the more she felt that this Dugu was not simple. Sis, you must help me vent this anger, Lui pleaded. Luiwer waved her hand in annoyance. Not now. Lin Tianfeng is watching closely, and besides, they are leaving tomorrow. Besides, if something really happened to Dugu at this time, then the first to be suspected would be them. Let's put this matter aside for now. We will see the situation tomorrow. Louis wanted to say something but hesitated, and could only reluctantly agree. A look of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. Night. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and a few stars shone in the sky. In the room, Chu Luwe sat cross-legged cultivating. These 2 days, she had consumed a lot of her force, and if not for the support of the water droplet in her dantian, she might not have been able to hold on after refining the elixir. She closed her eyes, and her fair and charming face, under the reflection of the moonlight, looked even more translucent like jade. As she breathed evenly, the force of heaven and earth around her surged like a tide, constantly entering her body. After breaking through to the 7th rank, because she had passed the spirit-gazing stage and recovered the Tianjing Yuan meridian, the speed of cultivation was much faster than before. After a large cycle of force, Chu Liyue's breath finally recovered. She gently exhaled and immediately raised her right hand. A silver star suddenly appeared on her index finger. Then the 2nd star. The 3rd star. After a while, one of Chu Liyue's hands lit up with 5 stars, bright and resplendent. Then, a few streams of light flew out, connecting the 5 stars, and a faint glow enveloped her entire palm. At this moment, a strange sound came from outside the window. A biting cold murderous intent suddenly broke through the air. Chu Liyue suddenly opened her eyes. Chapter 1048. The next moment, with a twist of her wrist, she pushed out a palm. The glowing silver palm print seemed slow, but in fact, it was moving forward quickly. Perhaps because the pressure was too strong, a long black space crack appeared behind it. Bang! The sound of something shattering could be heard. Light flashed on the palm print. The light dimmed a lot in an instant, but that sneak attack was intercepted in the end. A few pieces of broken icicles fell to the ground. Chu Liyue frowned and took a look. A long figure was reflected on the window. Her pupils shrank slightly. This aura. You do have some skills. A low and cold voice came. Louis. Chu Liyue almost immediately guessed the identity of the person who came. You're smart. In that case, we don't have to hide anymore. Louis sneered and suddenly waved his arm. Whoosh! His strength was so strong that it directly tore apart the enchantment set up by Chu Liyue. He forced his way in through the window. Chu Liyue immediately jumped up from the bed. What are you doing here? Chu Liyue shook her wrist and held the long yuan sword in her hand. Why are you so nervous? Louis raised his eyebrows and sneered. He glanced at Chu Liyue and said with disdain, Aren't you very powerful? Why are you scared? Chu Liyue's red lips curled slightly. She chuckled, but her eyes were cold. Yes, I'm very scared. If I accidentally crippled the brother of the Lin family's matriarch, that would be really bad. Lu Yi's face suddenly turned ugly. Arrogant. However, in his heart there was indeed some fear. Since the woman in front of him could take care of those 8 people, it proved that she was indeed not weak. Could it be that she had completely stepped into the god realm? Just as this thought appeared in his mind, Lu Yi immediately rejected it. That was impossible. If she had really reached such a level, then when she met him that day, she would not have chosen to escape directly. Moreover, it seemed that he had used some kind of origin device to teleport away. This didn't seem like something that a person of that level could do. I think you're the arrogant one, right? Chu Liyue frowned. Now that I'm 4th young Master Lin's celestial physician, I'll be accompanying him soon. If something were to happen to me today, who do you think the Lin family would go after? Louis certainly knew that if the matter was exposed, He and Lu Yue would not be able to escape suspicion. But so what? As long as they did it in secret, even if Lin Tianfeng was suspicious of them, he wouldn't be able to convict them. You're right. Lu Yi's eyes flashed with a murderous aura. So for safety's sake, from today on, you'd better shut your mouth forever. As he spoke, he raised the triangular awl in his hand and stabbed it towards Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue took a step back and raised his sword to block. Clang! Both sides clashed. Chu Luyue's hand suddenly went numb. After all, the opponent was a demigod powerhouse, several levels higher than her. She had no chance of winning in a head-on fight. Just as Chu Luyue's mind was racing, Lu Yi, who was opposite her, was shocked. You're not a god-level powerhouse. This wasn't a question, but a statement. In the world of divine ruins, almost all cultivators would use origin devices to cover their aura and hide their true strength. Ordinary people generally couldn't see anything, but as long as they fought, the cultivator's true strength would be revealed and couldn't be concealed. This was Lu Yi's first time fighting with Chu Luyue, so he immediately realized that something was wrong. Chu Luyue raised his arm and flung his triangular awl away. At the same time, a red flame quickly spread along the dragon abyss sword. It flew towards Lu Yi at lightning speed. Sensing a scorching aura coming towards him, Lu Yi knew that something was wrong. Taking a closer look, it was actually an abnormally hot red flame. He keenly felt that the pressure on the flame was extremely powerful and couldn't be underestimated. Then, he took a step back without thinking and poured his force into the triangular awl. Triple-ene icicle. Several inch-long, thumb-thick icicles condensed and flew out. Both sides faced the attack head-on. Boom! The red flame that was originally only the size of a palm suddenly burned violently. It transformed into a barrier and blocked in front of Chu Luyue. The closer the icicles were, the slower they became. In the end, they actually began to silently melt. Lu Yi was shocked. This triple-ene icicle was an extremely handy origin device for him. It was extremely powerful and almost invincible. However, when encountering this red flame, it actually had no power to resist. At this moment, Chu Luyue quickly swung his sword. A black light blade flew out. In the blink of an eye, it flew in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi was extremely shocked and furious as he crazily circulated his force. Chi! Several icicles flew out again. This time, the number was several times more than before. In the blink of an eye, Chu Luyue's figure was shrouded. The black light blade blocked most of the attacks, but there were still a few that narrowly dodged and went straight for Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue held the long yuan sword tightly and was about to move when she found that the space around her suddenly became sticky and heavy. Her body seemed to be pressed down by something, and every movement was extremely difficult. This was Lu Yi using his divine power. Although I haven't completely stepped into the god realm, it's enough to deal with you. Seeing that Chu Luyue was forcibly suppressed, the nervousness in Lu Yi's heart finally dissipated. He couldn't help but sneer. Don't worry, my icicles are bone-piercing cold. As long as one pierces your body, it can quickly freeze your entire body. Not long after you can, what? Lu Yi's smug smile had just appeared when he saw the icicles hit Chu Luyue's body. Not only did they not pierce her flesh, but they all shattered as if they were repelled by some force. He stared in disbelief and saw that Chu Luyue's body was covered with a layer of pale golden armor. And those icicles that he had shot out earlier had been shattered by the impact of the collision. This armor. Lu Yi had the Lin family behind him, so he had seen many good things. So at this time, he recognized at a glance that this armor was definitely not an ordinary item. To be able to block his attacks so easily, you have a lot of treasures on you. Lu Yi was so angry that he laughed, and there was a hint of greed in his eyes. As long as he got rid of her, these things would all be his. Just as he was about to attack again, the woman in front of him suddenly spoke. Lu Yi, have you never thought that since I'm not a god realm master, how did your subordinates fall to such a state? Lu Yi was stunned. Chu Luyue showed a meaningful smile and looked behind him. Sorry to trouble you. Chapter 1049. Lu Yi thought to himself, oh no. He immediately turned around and looked behind him. However, Before he could see the scene in front of him clearly, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. Bang! His vision turned black, and he fell to the ground with a muffled sound. The room returned to its original calm. If it weren't for Lu Yi lying on the ground with a bloody hole in his head, it would have looked like nothing had happened. Chu Luyue lowered her gaze slightly, glanced at him coldly, and then gave him a thumbs up in admiration. Debao, you're amazing. On the opposite side, Dugomabao put down a chair expressionlessly. The chair was taller than him. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that such a soft and cute child could pick up a chair and defeat a demigod powerhouse. He's just a demigod who used various methods to advance. His real combat power is actually similar to that of an ordinary peak 9th grade martial artist. Dugomabao commented indifferently. This was also why Chu Luyue could barely exchange 1 or 2 blows with him just now. Chu Luyue smiled and said, "That's true. You've already dealt with the previous 8 people. What's one more?" Recalling the scene at that time, Chu Luyue was still full of shock. At that time, she and Debao were blocked by those people in a narrow and dark alley. They were attacked from the front and back, and the opponent's realm was all higher than hers. When the situation was about to get out of hand, Debao stood up. From the beginning to the end, Chu Luyue didn't even move a finger. It wasn't that she didn't dare, but she didn't have time. By the time she realized what had happened, Debao had already taken care of the last person. If she had to say what she did putting people into boxes count? This was because Debao thought it was dirty, so he gave this dispensable task to Chu Luyue. From the beginning to the end, he only used a brick. Thinking of this, Chu Luyue's expression became a little complicated. Last time it was a brick. This time it's a chair. Debao, why don't I buy you a good yuan instrument? Dugomabao glanced at her coldly and said, "Don't worry. I'm afraid I'll lose face if I use an origin tool to deal with these people." Chu Luyue, pretend I didn't ask. She seemed to be overthinking things when talking to a terrifying existence who had condensed a divine body. However, speaking of which, when you concealed your aura at the beginning, I thought it was inconvenient for you to make a move. It's not convenient for me to attack, so I didn't use my godly power. Dugomabao said calmly, "This divine body is enough to deal with these small problems." Chu Liyue's mouth twitched. Small problem. She started to regret talking to Dugomabao about this. Every time she mentioned these things, her self-esteem and confidence would be crazily attacked. Cough. Chu Liyue coughed and looked at the unconscious Lu Yi on the ground. What should we do with him? It felt like a loss to send him back just like that. Dugomabao said casually. Just destroy his primordial core. Chu Liyue's eyes twitched. Really? She wasn't being soft-hearted, but if he woke up in the future and found that he had become a cripple, he would definitely push all the blame onto her. Although he wasn't a threat, his sister, Lu Yue, wasn't easy to deal with. Even if she could rely on treating Lin Qifei to win a certain amount of bargaining chips, she was still alone and helpless here. She wasn't afraid of trouble, but she felt that there might be some unnecessary trouble when the time came. Dugomabao frowned. This Lu Yi was presumptuous and arrogant, and he had attacked her repeatedly. She didn't want to cripple him? Then what do you want? Chu Luyue broke into a bright smile and chuckled. There are many ways to punish a person. Why do you have to be so obvious? As she spoke, she took out a pill and forced it down his throat. What's that? Dugomabao narrowed his eyes. Soul-devouring pill. Chu Luyue clapped her hands. After using it, he will gradually lose all of his memories within a year. The first thing he will forget is what happened tonight. When he wakes up tomorrow, he won't be able to remember, even if he wants to identify us. While his memories are in chaos, he will gradually lose his consciousness and eventually become a cripple without reason and emotions. Dugomabao's demonic purple eyes seemed to flicker. His eyebrows relaxed, revealing a touch of satisfaction. That's more like it. Even if they were in a different body, he didn't want her to become soft-hearted because of it. Okay, now we just need to send him back. Chu Luyue was about to pull Lu Yi up and send him away, but suddenly stopped. She seemed to be thinking about something. Her expression was blank, and there seemed to be a dark tide surging in the depths of her black jade-like eyes. Dugu Mabao felt that something was wrong and immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue didn't respond. Dugu Mabao called her again. "Yua?" This time, Chu Luiyue finally came back to her senses. She slowly turned her head, her movements a little stiff, and the expression on her face was very strange. "Debeo," she spoke softly. Although she was talking to Dugu Mabao, her eyes were not focused, as if she was looking through the void. Dugu Mabao's heart skipped a beat when he saw her like this. "What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue was silent for a while before she spoke softly, word by word. "From my death in my previous life to my rebirth in this life, it seems it has been exactly 1 year. Digression, it's the last day, please vote. Continue at 6 p.m. 200 monthly votes plus 1 more update." Chapter 1050. Dugu Mabao's eyes flickered slightly. "It's just a coincidence." "Really?" Chu Luiyue asked skeptically. "At that time, your physical body was dead, and your physical body was completely destroyed. Only a wisp of your soul was left, which was barely reborn into this body. What does that have to do with the soul-devouring pill?" Dugu Mabao said lightly. Chu Luiyue nodded thoughtfully. "That's true, but..." However, she still felt that there was something wrong with this matter. At that time, after she was reborn, she had even specifically asked about the time. That day was indeed exactly 1 year after her death. If it was a coincidence, was there really no deeper meaning? "Let's send him back first, in case anything happens," Dugu Mabao urged calmly. Chu Luiyue glanced at Dugu Mabao in front of her. She didn't know if he didn't want to talk about it with her, or if he was really uninterested. But she didn't ask further. Maybe she was thinking too much. She nodded and put away her doubts. She pulled Lu Yi up from the ground. "Let's go." The night passed silently. Early the next morning, Chu Luiyue brought Dugu Mabao to the Lin family. When the guards saw the two of them, they bowed from afar, their faces full of smiles. "Miss Dugu, you're finally here. Master and 4th young master are waiting for you." Seeing their reaction, Chu Luiyue understood that the news of Lin Qifei's recovery should have spread. Sure enough, after walking for a short while, she saw Lin Tianfeng, who had heard the news and came out to greet her. Seeing Chu Luiyue, Lin Tianfeng's face instantly stretched into a smile. "Miss Dugu." Chu Luiyue smiled and greeted him. "Master Lin, I'm not late, am I?" "You're not late at all." Lin Tianfeng was all smiles. "Please come in. Jifei is packing his things, so he didn't come." "Miss Dugu, please don't blame him." Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. How could this be? Although she knew that Lin Tianfeng favored Lin Qifei, she didn't expect it to be to this extent. She hadn't completely cured Lin Qifei yet. Lin Tianfeng's attitude towards her was much better than before. If he really waited for Lin Qifei to recover, he wouldn't know how to thank him. Chu Luiyue asked as he followed Lin Tianfeng inside. "Is 4th young master feeling better today?" Much better, much better." Lin Tianfeng hurriedly nodded, his eyes filled with undisguised excitement and relief. "Miss Dugu is indeed amazing. This time, it's all thanks to you." Originally, he wanted to check on Lin Qifei last night, but the servant said that he had already taken off his clothes, so he didn't disturb him. But when he saw Lin Qifei this morning, he immediately felt the difference. Lin Qifei's body was indeed much better. This allowed him to finally relax his heart that had been hanging in the air all this time. When he saw Chu Luiyue again, his reaction was naturally different. Chu Luiyue chuckled. "It's mainly because 4th young master has a good foundation and good luck. No matter what, I have to thank Miss Dugu properly this time." Lin Tianfeng sighed with emotion. As they spoke, the two had already arrived at Lin Qifei's residence. The servant was already at the door to welcome them. As soon as he walked in, Chu Luiyue saw Lin Qifei. Today, he wore a bamboo green brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist. It was clearly an extremely simple outfit, but it had a clear and bright charm. Her face, which had always been pale, had a hint of color. Coupled with her eyes that seemed to have become clearer, she looked completely different from before. Without the existence of the strange bead, and the knot in his heart had been untied, he naturally recovered very quickly. Seeing him like this, Chu Luiyue was inwardly surprised. It could only be said that Lin Qifei's recovery ability was indeed stronger than she had expected. Without any obstacles, this kind of person's future path was bound to be very broad and bright. It was no wonder that Lin Tianfeng was so happy today. This should be the scene he wanted to see the most in the past few decades, right? It seems that fourth young master has really recovered. Chu Liyue smiled as he walked forward. The indifference between Lin Jifei's eyebrows melted a lot. Everything depends on Miss Dugu. Last night was the most peaceful sleep I've had in years. I wonder, did Miss Dugu sleep well? Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and her smile deepened. Thank you for your concern, fourth young master. Debeo and I also slept very well. Lin Qifei nodded. That's good. Then, Chu Liyue took the opportunity to take his pulse. Fourth young master's body has been damaged for several years. If you want to fully recover, you'll need to carefully rest for a period of time. Lin Qifei smiled. You've already endured so many years. What else can't wait? Hearing the two's conversation, Lin Tianfeng confirmed that Lin Qifei's body really did have a chance to recover. He turned slightly and took a deep breath, suppressing the tears in his eyes. Patriarch, fourth young master, everyone is already waiting in the front hall. The manservant came forward to report. It's time to go. Only then did Lin Tianfeng turn around and urge the two with a smile. Look at me, I almost forgot about this. Jifei, Miss Dugu, let's go. The few of them went straight to the front hall. When they arrived, there was indeed a group of people gathered. Chu Liyue quickly glanced around. The three old men had obscure auras. They were obviously the elders chosen by the Lin family to go with them. Next to them stood three young girls. At a glance, all of them were beautiful and graceful. Moreover, the auras around the three of them were not weak either. It was obvious that they were carefully selected beauties, and they were excellent in all aspects. Chu Liyue's gaze suddenly became a little strange. It seemed that these three were the candidates chosen by Heavenly Cave Cliff to participate in the Holy Sun's concubine selection. Seeing Lin Tianfeng and the others arrive, the people in the front hall immediately looked over and bowed in unison. Greetings, Patriarch. Lin Tianfeng raised his hand and smiled brightly. We're about to set off, so there's no need to be so formal. Seeing that he was so happy, the few of them looked at each other, and then at Lin Qifei, who followed behind him. They all understood. Seeing that Patriarch is so happy, it seems that fourth young master's body has almost recovered? One of the elders laughed and asked. It's all thanks to Miss Dugu. Lin Tianfeng laughed heartily. Hearing his affirmative answer, everyone in the room instantly looked at Chu Liyue. This woman looked ordinary, and they heard that she was an outsider. Could she really be that powerful? Chu Liyue seemed to be in a daze. Lin Qifei called out to her gently. Miss Dugu? Miss Dugu? What are you thinking about? Chu Liyue came back to her senses and realized that everyone was looking at her. She smiled. Nothing. I was just thinking that these girls are really very beautiful. His Highness the Holy Sun will like them very much when he sees them, right? Chapter 1051. For some reason, Lin Qifei felt that there was something wrong with Chu Liyue's tone, but he couldn't put his finger on it. On the other hand, the women looked delighted when they heard this. Although they knew that their chances of being selected were slim, who didn't like to hear beautiful words? Besides, no one could be certain about this kind of thing. If they were lucky, they would soar to the sky. Thank you, Miss Dugu, for your kind words. However, there are many tribes participating in the Holy Sun's birthday banquet this time. Each tribe has selected the most outstanding women of the right age, so the competition is fierce. We still don't know what the outcome will be. Lin Tianfeng chuckled. In fact, he didn't have much hope at all. Among the many tribes, Heavenly Cave Cliff was considered to be at the bottom. Whether it was territory resources or other aspects, they couldn't compare to the other tribes. The three women today were carefully selected by them with great difficulty. At first glance, they might look good, but compared to the noble ladies carefully trained by the larger tribes, they were still incomparable. When the women heard this, they hurriedly restrained their expressions. Miss Dugu is young and came from outside the realm. I didn't expect that she could really cure the fourth young master's illness. I heard that Miss Dugu is now an 8th grade celestial physician? An old man standing at the back suddenly spoke. His voice was solemn and carried an undisguised arrogance. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. The old man's cheeks were thin and his hair was white. However, his eyes flashed with a shrewd and cold light. Ever since she and Lin Qifei came in, he didn't smile much. Moreover, he seemed to have a hidden hostility towards her. Chu Luiyue smiled, as if she didn't notice anything amiss. She smiled and said, I did break through to the 8th grade celestial physician 2 days ago. Senior, this is Elder Lu Rahai. Lin Qifei said. He is also the Lin family's current celestial physician, the Great Elder. Chu Luiyue immediately understood. So this is the celestial physician with the highest rank in the Lin family? According to Lin Tianfeng, it seemed that he was already peak rank 9? After knowing the other party's identity, Chu Luiyue immediately understood why the other party didn't like him. He was powerful and had a high status in the Lin clan. Lin Qifei's illness, which had not been cured for many years, was cured as soon as she came. Wasn't this a slap to his face? It was no wonder that he treated her like this. Chu Luiyue bowed. Junior Dugu greets Senior Lu Rahai. Lu Rahai directly said, There's no need for such formalities. Perhaps in the future, this old man will have many questions to consult Miss Dugu. These words sounded a little strange, but Chu Luiyue didn't care and just smiled. Elder Lin Mo, who had been talking to Lin Tianfeng at the beginning, came out to smooth things over. Haha, since everyone is here, then Patriarch, let's go, shall we? Lin Tianfeng nodded, but then Lu Rahai suddenly said, Of course we're going, but what's with that child? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, she saw him staring coldly at Dugu Mabao. She pulled Dugu Mabao behind her and smiled politely. Debao is just a child, and he's always been obedient. He won't cause any trouble. Oh, are you sure? Lu Rahai lightly snorted. You have to know how precious the quota to go to that place is. Since you cured 4th young master, and will be accompanying him for a period of time, there's nothing wrong with giving you a quota. But this child, Elder Lu, according to this child's age, he won't take up a quota, Lin Tianfeng reminded. This old man is naturally aware of this. But Patriarch, don't forget that His Highness, the Holy Sun, is holding a birthday banquet this time. At the same time, there will be a consort selection. Bringing a child to such an occasion, isn't it a little inappropriate? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly, but there was no smile in her eyes. Then according to what you're saying, do you want me to leave Debao alone? Lu Rahai stroked his beard. That's not impossible. Anyway, the Lin family still has the mistress, and there are many people in the family who can take care of the child. They won't treat him badly. This is convenient for everyone, isn't it? Chu Luiyue sneered in her heart. You want to take Debao hostage? You've got a pretty good plan. He was afraid that if he angered Debao, the ones who would suffer would be the others. Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. She looked directly at Lin Tianfeng and asked with a faint smile. Patriarch Lin, what do you think? Lin Tianfeng shook his head almost without hesitation. No need. This child is still young. How can he be separated from his mother? With so many of us here, there won't be any problems. Dugu came to the Divine Ruins world to take the child to find her husband. If they separated the mother and son, it would be too unkind. Although he was a little worried, Dugu cured Jifei's illness, and he was willing to take responsibility. Patriarch. This. Lu Rahai wanted to say something, but Lin Tianfeng stopped him with a look. Alright, it's getting late. Let's set off as soon as possible. After he finished speaking, Lin Tianfeng directly left. Lu Rahai's face was a little ugly, but he couldn't argue anymore. He frowned and looked at Chu Luiyue and Dugu Mabao, and then followed. Chu Luiyue touched Dugu Mabao's head. Don't worry, I won't leave you no matter where we go. Dugu Mabao's eyes twitched fiercely, but when he heard this, he resisted the urge to explode. The group didn't say anything else, and went straight to the teleportation array. Digression. Around 7:30 p.m., star of the recommendation tickets and monthly votes. Please come and verify the news as soon as possible. Chapter 1052. Perhaps it was because Chu Liyue's current appearance was too ordinary, and she was an outstanding celestial physician. Or perhaps it was because Dugu Mabao was too soft and cute, causing the women's maternal love to overflow. In short, along the way, their attitude towards Chu Liyue and Dugu Mabao was extremely good. Several people surrounded the two and asked a lot of questions. Obviously, they were very interested in the two of them. Chu Liyue was fine and chatted with them from time to time. Dugu Mabao's little face was cold, and his whole body exuded a cold air that kept people away. Unfortunately, with his current cute appearance and body, it was really not convincing. If not for Chu Liyue's strict defense, Dugu Mabao's noble face would have been touched. In this way, after an extremely difficult period of time, they finally arrived at the place. Chu Liyue raised her eyes and looked forward. This was a huge square. In the middle of the square, there was a circular black teleportation array. Some kind of pattern was engraved on it. That was the Lin family's totem. There were not many people around, but there were still several teams of guards guarding it. The standard was very high, and the atmosphere was solemn. After arriving here, everyone seemed to have become serious. There was a vague sense of awe. Lin Tianfeng looked around and frowned. Where's Yuer? According to the rules, Lu Yuer should have been waiting here early and sent them off. But at this time, everyone else was here, but Lu Yuer was nowhere to be seen. The man in the lead stepped forward and said respectfully, "Master, madam, she just left temporarily because of some special matters." What matter was more important than sending them to that place? Lin Tianfeng didn't need to think to know what was going on, and his face turned cold. Something happened to the Lu family again. The man hesitated for a moment and lowered his voice. "I heard that there's something wrong with young Master Lu's body." He's usually the most arrogant. What problem can he have? Not only was Lu Yi insensible, but even Lu Yuer was also fooling around. For the sake of her spoiled little brother, she even disregarded her duty as the Lin family's matriarch. Forget it. It wouldn't be too late to settle the score after they returned. As Lin Tianfeng spoke, he stepped onto the transmission array. Lin Qifei, Elder Lin Mo, and the others followed closely behind. Then there were a few young girls. Finally, it was Chu Liyue and Dugu Mabao. This teleportation array was actually not very big. It seemed that only about 100 people could pass through at a time, but its aura was extraordinary. Just as Chu Liyue was about to step forward, the women who had just stepped forward suddenly cried out in pain. One of them didn't pay attention and directly knelt on the ground. Her knee hit the ground hard, making a muffled sound. She was in so much pain that her face turned pale. Chu Liyue narrowed his eyes slightly. This was obviously not a reaction that would be caused by a simple knock. It seemed like the other end of this teleportation array is connected to the other side. The pressure is naturally much stronger than other teleportation arrays. Elder Lin Mo hurriedly walked over and helped the woman up. Even people like us who have already stepped into the God realm find it difficult to deal with, let alone you. With Elder Lin Mo's help, the woman stood up with difficulty. As for the other two women, it seemed that they also managed to stabilize themselves with the help of the other two elders. It was just that from their expressions, it was clear that they were not very used to it. On the way later, remember to keep an eye on each other. The patriarch and the elders will also help you. Elder Lin Mo said comfortingly. Only then did the women feel more at ease. However, there was still some apprehension between their brows. Lin Qifei looked at Chu Liyue and frowned slightly. Chu Liyue did not notice this and pulled Dugu Mabao up. However, just as she stood up, she felt a heavy pressure coming from all directions. Danger! Alarm bells rang in Chu Liyue's heart. Her true strength was only at the early stage of the 7th stage. How could she deal with this? However, at this time, she could not openly ask for Taizu's help. As for Dugu Mabao, this was even more so. Just as she was filled with anxiety, suddenly, the universe ring on her hand trembled slightly, and an extremely subtle fluctuation was emitted. Whoosh! That inexplicable pressure suddenly dissipated. All the burdens around Chu Liyue seemed to have disappeared at this moment. Chu Liyue looked down at the universe ring on her hand with some surprise. There was nothing unusual. Apart from her, No one else seemed to have noticed this slight change. She pursed her lips. This universe ring belonged to Rong Xiao, but it did not seem to be an ordinary universe ring. The reaction of this teleportation array. Miss Dugu, are you all right? Lin Qifei suddenly asked. Chu Luiyue looked up and laughed. I'm fine. Fourth young master, you don't have to worry. As she spoke, she looked at Dugu Mabao beside her. Debao, how are you? Dugu Mabao did not want to speak, but seeing her concerned expression, he finally said 2 words. I'm fine. What is this girl thinking? He had already recondensed his divine body. Of course, this teleportation array would not be a threat to him. She still asked that. Dugu Mabao shook his head helplessly. She really was a worrisome person. As they spoke, the 2 of them had already walked to the side of those people. At this moment, Chu Luiyue realized that they were looking at her, and Dugu Mabao strangely. What's wrong? Chu Luiyue asked, puzzled. Lin Tianfeng's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Are you guys really okay? It was fine if it was Dugu. After all, she was able to break in from the outside, and had extraordinary strength. But this child, why did it seem like he was not affected at all? Chu Luiyue roughly guessed what they were thinking, but did not say much. Lin Qifei curled his palm and smiled. It's good that you're fine. Father, let's go. Lin Tianfeng nodded and suppressed the doubts in his heart. The force around him gathered. Soon, a bright and resplendent pattern appeared above his head. It was also the Lin family's totem. Buzz. The teleportation array seemed to be urged by some kind of force and slowly started to turn. At the same time, thousands of miles away, several islands floated quietly. The rich force of heaven and earth condensed into white mist and floated lightly. Below them was the deep blue sea. Under the sunlight, it was sparkling and sparkling. At a glance, it was like a fairyland. On one of the islands, a few guards were guarding a teleportation array. Suddenly, a strange fluctuation came from the teleportation array. One of the guards widened his eyes slightly. Why does this seem like the aura of His Highness the Son of God? What nonsense are you talking about? His Highness's birthday banquet is about to begin. People from various tribes have already arrived. The main island is very lively. Why would His Highness appear here? A guard beside him immediately retorted. But, no buts. I heard that the one from the Tomb of Immortal Water is also here. The position of princess consort should be hers? Digression. Finally, she waved her weak little hand. Those who have tickets must cast them out before 12 o'clock. So big. Chapter 1053. Wait. Just as Lin Tianfeng's group was about to set off, an anxious shout came from the distance. Dugu, you can't go. Hearing this voice, Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and he looked up. It was Luiyue. She was in a hurry, and her eyes were filled with anger. She rushed up to Chu Luiyue, and was about to step onto the teleportation formation, when she was stopped by a guard. Mistress, you can't go to the teleportation formation now. Luiyue was furious and could only stand there, looking at Lin Tianfeng with grievance. Master, you can't take her. Lin Tianfeng frowned. What are you doing? Master, she injured Lu Yi and even poisoned him. You can't let such a vicious person stay by your side. What nonsense are you talking about? Lin Tianfeng was already dissatisfied with her, and hearing her lose her composure for Lu Yi, he couldn't help but feel even more annoyed. Luiyue saw that the teleportation formation was about to start, and her heart was filled with anger and anxiety. She pointed at Chu Luiyue, her eyes full of resentment. Dugu, you know best what you've done. Chu Luiyue smiled. Madam Lin, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? You said that I injured young Master Lu and poisoned him. But Debao and I were resting at the inn last night, and didn't go out. Do you have any evidence? Luiyue was furious. She heard the news this morning that something had happened to Lu Yi. She didn't want to go at first. After all, she still had to send off Lin Tianfeng and the others. But it seemed that the manservant who delivered the news was extremely flustered. She was worried, so she still went. It didn't matter if she didn't go. When she went, she found that Lu Yi's condition was indeed very bad. Not only was there a bloody hole in his head, but he was also running a high fever. He had been in a coma, and was constantly muttering nonsense. Seeing him like this, she immediately guessed that he must have gone to find trouble with Duguyu, and ended up like this. That was why she came to find trouble with Duguyu, wanting her to give her an explanation. But the evidence, was she going to tell him everything? They were in the wrong. Currently, the only person who could testify against Duguyu was Lu Yi. But his mind was muddled, and he couldn't say anything. Seeing that Lu Yue was speechless, Lin Tianfeng's tone became much harsher. Miss Dugu is an honored guest of my Lin family. How can you slander her like this? Don't let me hear such words again. Otherwise, Lu Yue bit her lips, the thick smell of blood permeating between her lips and teeth. This Duguyu is really good. By curing Lin Qifei, he easily gained Lin Tianfeng's trust and protection. If he let her go now, it would be difficult to deal with her in the future. But she was not qualified to go with him. Duguyu, I won't let this matter rest. The truth will be revealed one day. When that time comes, we'll see. Chu Liyue shrugged and chuckled. You're welcome. Looking at her relaxed expression, as if she didn't care about this matter at all, Lu Yue was fuming. But at this moment, the teleportation circle was fully activated. The teleportation circle shone brightly, and the few of them were instantly enveloped. Farewell, master. As everyone respectfully sent them off, their figures disappeared. Looking at the empty teleportation circle in front of her, Lu Yue gritted her teeth. Duguyu, don't think that you can just leave like this. Lin Tianfeng and the rest entered the space tunnel, probably because the teleportation circle was of a very high level, and it was jointly built by the top experts. It was very stable. After entering, Elder Lin Mo took out a lantern. The bright light instantly illuminated the space where everyone was. Miss Dugu, just now what happened? After a short period of silence, a woman finally couldn't help but break the silence. Hearing this, the others also looked over. Chu Liyue's expression was normal, and she smiled helplessly. I don't know either. When I first came to Heavenly Cave Cliff a few days ago, I met that young Master Lu. At that time, there was a small argument, and it wasn't very pleasant. Today, Madame Lin suddenly acted like this, and I don't know why. The women looked at each other and nodded thoughtfully. Who in Heavenly Cave Cliff didn't know what kind of person Louis was? Duguyu came from the outside world with a child, and she was considered to have no one to rely on. Why would such a person take the initiative to cause trouble? It must be Lu Yi who started it first, and now he's making the accusation. Miss Dugu, don't worry. Now that you've cured fourth young master, everyone in the Lin family has to be polite to you. There's nothing to be afraid of. That's right. With Miss Dugu's ability, why bother with such a person? That Lu Yi is used to bullying people. Someone will teach him a lesson sooner or later. The women comforted her. Looking at Chu Liyue, and then looking at Dugu Mabao, they all showed sympathy. Was it easy for a widow and an orphan? Thank you. I don't care about these things. Chu Liyue's lips curved slightly. This trip is the most important thing to me. The women's eyes were complicated and they all nodded. In fact, they had all heard that Duguyu came from the outside world to find her husband with her child. It was rumored that her husband was from the outside world. And by chance, he met and fell in love with Duguyu in the outside world, and they had a child together. Unfortunately, he never returned, and he actually abandoned the mother and son pair. All men in the world are the same. After eating and playing enough, they're bored. Miss Dugu, if you find that man this time, you must not be afraid. You must teach him a good lesson, and let him know how powerful you are. That's right. Don't worry, we'll all be on your side. Although Miss Dugu is an outsider, her talent is outstanding and her strength is strong. That man is obviously blind to treat you like this. It's not easy to find a three-legged toad, but a two-legged man is everywhere. According to Miss Dugu's conditions, why would she worry about marriage? The women said angrily. Chu Liyue clenched her fist to her lips and coughed. Well, actually, he's not that bad. Before Chu Liyue could finish her sentence, the few women exclaimed in shock. Miss Dugu, don't tell me you still can't forget that scumbag? That can't be. That's right. This kind of man can't be. Chu Liyue. If they knew that the person they were scolding now was the holy son that they longed to see, What would their expressions be like? And if that Honorable His Highness the Holy Sun heard these words, what kind of expression would he have? We're almost there, Lin Tianfeng suddenly said. Chu Luiyue looked forward. A bright spot of light appeared at the end of the tunnel. The Yuntian Tower is in front. Chapter 1054. Yuntian Tower. Chu Luiyue repeated the name in her mind. So, that's the name of Rongxiu's family? When the few people beside him heard this, they all quieted down. Even in the dark tunnel, it wasn't hard for Chu Luiyue to sense the slightly tense atmosphere. Even Lin Tianfeng's expression was unprecedentedly solemn and serious. It was obvious that everyone was more or less nervous. Soon, a strange fluctuation came from the front. Chu Luiyue subconsciously held her breath. With a burst of pressure, the sky lit up. Stepping on the thick ground, Chu Luiyue's heart calmed down a little. She was not used to the glaring sunlight, and squinted her eyes slightly. After a while she looked around. In front of her was an azure sea. The waves sparkled pure and vast. In the distance, islands of different sizes floated quietly in the air, surrounded by smoke. It was like a fairyland. The sky was a clear light blue. Where the water met the sky, it was almost impossible to tell whether the blue was the sky or the sea. There was a faint sweet smell in the air that refreshed the heart and refreshed the mind, making the entire body feel comfortable. Chu Luiyue was secretly shocked. The density and purity of the heaven and earth origin force here was something she had never seen before. At this moment she heard a dignified voice. Heavenly Cave Cliff? Chu Luiyue paused and turned to look in the direction of the voice. Beside the teleportation formation, there were a few guards in black armor. The one who spoke seemed to be of a higher rank, and his aura was stronger than the others. On the left chest of their armor, there was a strange pattern engraved. This should be the totem of the Yuntian Tower. Chu Luiyue looked at it, and felt that it was somewhat familiar. Lin Tianfeng cupped his hands and smiled. Lin Tianfeng of Heavenly Cave Cliff has led the clan to congratulate His Highness the Holy Sun on his birthday. The leader cupped his fists and said politely, "Greetings, Patriarch Lin." The people behind him also bowed in unison. Chu Luiyue looked on from behind with some amusement. Although these people were very polite to Lin Tianfeng, they did not seem to put themselves down. Lin Tianfeng also treated them with great respect, and his attitude was clearly different from that of ordinary guards. The Yuntian Tower was indeed extraordinary. These soldiers were obviously treating him like this because he was a member of the Yuntian Tower. When a clan was strong to a certain extent, everyone would be respected. This was the right to speak that came with strength. "Patriarch Lin, why are you so late? His Highness's birthday banquet is in a few hours. If you were any later, you wouldn't even be able to go to the main island." Lin hurriedly. "I'm sorry, we did not meet. There was a problem with the teleportation formation earlier, so it was delayed." The soldier shook his head. "Forget it. Since there's still some time left, all of you, why is there as a child?" He looked at Lin Tianfeng and frowned slightly. "Patriarch Lin, I don't remember you having such a young child." Lin Tianfeng hurriedly waved his hand in denial. "It's a misunderstanding. This child is not my Lin family's, but Miss Duga's. She is my son Jifei's personal celestial physician, so she came with us." Many people knew that Lin Tianfeng favored his youngest son Lin Qifei. It was rumored that he had always wanted to pass the position of patriarch to Lin Qifei. Unfortunately, Lin Qifei was born with a weak body and was a medicine jar. Many people were not very optimistic about this matter. However, Lin Tianfeng's attitude had not changed. It was expected that he would bring Lin Qifei and his personal celestial physician. But the personal celestial physician was one thing. But why did he bring a child? "Patriarch Lin, although this child doesn't take up a slot, it seems inappropriate for you to do this. This is the birthday banquet of His Highness the Holy Sun, and it's also a concubine selection ceremony. Lin Tianfeng coughed and lowered his voice. "This, you don't know, but Miss Dugu has no relatives or friends, and it's really hard for her to take care of a child. I can't let her leave the child behind. I promise, I won't let the child run around and cause any trouble. How about you make an exception?" Seeing that Lin Tianfeng was pleading for leniency, the soldier could not say anything more. If that's the case, then please be careful, Patriarch Lin. You also know that this is Yuntian Tower. When he said the last sentence, the soldier's voice became more serious, with a hint of authority. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly thanked him. The soldier waved his hand. The people of the other tribes have already arrived. You should go as well. Although Heavenly Cave Cliff was considered to be at the bottom of these tribes, they still had to do what they were supposed to do. After that, he waved his sleeve slightly, and a palm-sized white jade token appeared in the air. The token was engraved with the totem of the Yuntian Tower, and the edges were decorated with auspicious clouds. It shone brightly. The soldier said in a deep voice, "The Lin clan of Heavenly Cave Cliff has arrived. Leader, please send someone to receive us." As soon as he finished speaking, a faint buzzing sound came from the token. Soon after, a silver ray of light flew out and extended in another direction. Chu Luyue and the others looked in the direction of the stream of light. They saw a huge island floating quietly in the distance. It seemed to be at the center of this place, and it was also the largest island here. Whether it was in terms of scale or aura, it was indisputably a top existence. That should be the main island they were talking about, right? Just as this thought flashed through Chu Liyue's mind, a stream of light suddenly flew out of the main island. Compared to the stream of light on the token, that stream of light was obviously much more majestic. Not long after, the two streams of light connected in mid-air, forming a bridge. "Everyone please." Lin Tianfeng was the first to leap up and land on the bridge. The rest of the people followed closely behind. The elders were still fine. After all, they had seen a lot of the world, so they were still calm at this time. However, even though the women tried their best to appear calm, the corners of their eyes and brows could not hide the excitement and curiosity. It was their first time here. The Yuntian Tower was a place that was unreachable for them. Now, using this opportunity, they could actually come here. It was like a dream. Chu Luyue led Duge Mabao and was the last to go up. "Let's go." Lin Tianfeng took the lead and walked forward. At the same time, Rong Xiu was reading in the study. Suddenly, he paused and his thin lips curled into a faint smile. "You're finally here." With that, he stood up and walked outside. Yanqing saw this and quickly followed. "Your Highness, do you really want to go personally now? How about this subordinate go first? Now that there are people outside, it is inevitable that His Highness will be seen." Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. "I naturally have to go personally to welcome my own princess." Chapter 1055. Yanqing cursed in her heart. His words were like gold and jade. He had already said that she was the princess, but he still wanted to hold a consort selection hall with great fanfare, as if it was real. When that person came and saw this scene, who knew what kind of reaction she would have? But since His Highness had decided to do this, as subordinates, they could only follow his orders. In a short time, countless possible scenes flashed through Yanqing's mind. Perhaps he should also think about how he would not be implicated by His Highness when the time came. However, just as the master and servant walked out, before they could move, Umo hurried back from outside. "Your Highness." Seeing Rong Xiu, Umo hurriedly bowed. "Your Highness, Miss Jiang is here. She is waiting outside the hall at this moment, saying that she has something important to discuss with you personally." He did not mention her background or name. Just Miss Jiang was enough to explain who she was. This could only prove that this person's status was extremely high, and it was obvious who she was referring to. Rong Xiu did not stop walking, and his expression was indifferent. "Let her wait." Umo was stunned for a moment. He looked up in surprise and glanced at Rong Xiu. It would be fine if His Highness did not want to see anyone else, but this person. Then, Umo had a flash of inspiration as he suddenly thought of something. Could it be? He quickly looked at Yanqing. Yanqing nodded calmly. Umo understood. No wonder. It was really that person who came. Umo immediately swallowed the words in his throat. Since that person was here, everyone else had to step back. However, not long after Rong Xiu walked out, a sweet and gentle woman's voice was heard. "Your Highness, where are you going?" You are in such a hurry that you don't even want to see me? Rongxiu stopped and looked sideways. A woman dressed in a long white dress was standing there charmingly. She was slender, and there were no extra accessories on her body. Only a thin blue jade belt around her waist outlined the curves of a young girl. Her face was like a peach, and her facial features were perfect. The most moving thing was the gentleness in her watery eyes. Her fine black hair was tied up in an exquisite bun, with a sapphire dangling from it. She tilted her head slightly and shook it gently, as if she could stir people's hearts. Rongxiu narrowed his eyes and said calmly, "Jiang Jiwan, why are you here?" As he spoke, his gaze fell on Umo. Umo was shocked and hurriedly said, "Your Highness." This subordinate asked eldest young Miss Jiang to wait outside, and did not invite her in. This subordinate also does not know why she is here. The soldiers who were standing guard at the side were stunned. Only then did they realize that they seemed to have done something wrong. They hurriedly knelt down. "Your Highness, I have already set the rules. Without I's permission, no one is allowed to enter or leave this place. It seems like you guys don't have a good memory. Your Highness, please spare my life, Your Highness. Strip him of his position, and flog him 100 times. Rongxiu's voice was cold. "It's in front of the main hall. Carry it out immediately." Hearing his words, the soldiers' faces turned pale and they fell to the ground. "It's over." The smile on Jiang Juan's face froze. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" "They only let me in because they saw that it was me. In the past, I could come and go freely when I came here. I have never." That was in the past. Rongxiu looked at her deeply. "When the clan leader lived here, you could do whatever you wanted. But now this is I's palace. Naturally, I have the final say. I believe that this time, eldest young Miss Jiang should also remember this rule, right?" Digression continue at 6 p.m. The list of names for August's periphery will be announced tomorrow. Chapter 1056. Jiang Jiwan's face slowly turned red. Tears welled up in her eyes, and the tip of her nose stung. She bit her lip and tried to calm herself down, but her voice still sounded like she was about to cry. "I didn't know Your Highness hated me so much." Originally, she was overjoyed when she came here. Her mind was filled with thoughts of what would happen after their meeting. She rarely came here in the past few years. She hadn't seen Rongxiu for 2 years. She had imagined countless scenarios, but none of them were as embarrassing as the one before her. Her face felt like it was on fire. It was burning with pain. The gazes of the people around her were like steel needles piercing her body. She wished she could disappear from this place immediately. She didn't expect that he would embarrass her like this. Compared to Jiang Jiwan's shock and heartache, Rongxiu didn't take this matter to heart. In the past, when the clan leader was in power, he indulged her in every possible way. But now it was different. Jiang Jiwan's status wasn't low, but this was the Yuntian Tower. She couldn't do as she pleased. "Umo, stay here and watch them finish their punishment." "Yes." Umo wiped the sweat off his forehead. He couldn't help but look at Jiang Jiwan, with a trace of dissatisfaction in his heart. Does this young miss still think that the Yuntian Tower today is the same as the Yuntian Tower a few years ago? Wasn't she a little too bold? She actually dared to barge in like this. She really doesn't treat me as an outsider. Rongxiu finished speaking, and was about to leave. Seeing that he was about to leave, Jiang Juan couldn't help but shout again. "Wait, Your Highness, do you really not want to see me that much? We haven't seen each other for years." Rongxiu wanted to nod directly, but he chose to be merciful for the sake of the Jiang clan. "I have something important to do." Jiang Jiwan was slightly stunned. "What is so important that Your Highness needs to do personally at this time?" In a while the banquet would begin. What was he planning to do? Rongxiu's eyes seemed to be covered with a thin layer of frost. "Miss Jiang, are you questioning I?" Jiang Jiwan's heart tightened. "No, I'm not. I'm just asking casually. It's fine if Your Highness doesn't want to tell me." Seeing that Rongxiu really had no reluctance, and was about to leave, she gritted her teeth and took a step forward. "Your Highness, I'm here because I have something important to discuss with you." Rongxiu seemed to have no intention of paying attention to him. He turned around with an indifferent expression. "It's related to the academy," Jiang Jiwan shouted. Rongxiu paused and looked back at her. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. Speak. Chu Luiyue and the others walked along the silver bridge. After about 15 minutes, they arrived at the main island. When they got closer, they could see everything on the main island more clearly. This island was huge. There were mountains and forests, rising and falling continuously. On these mountains, there were several palaces scattered like stars in the sky. On the highest peak in the middle, there was a magnificent palace towering majestically. Chu Luiyue and the others arrived at the bottom and edge of the main island. Therefore, if they wanted to see the palaces, they would have to look up. Because they couldn't see very clearly, coupled with the white fog, they could only see a corner of the palace. However, even at such a distance, they could still clearly feel the ancient and vast pressure. It was a power and aura that almost made people submit to it from the depths of their souls. Master Lin, a soldier in charge of receiving them, stepped forward. Judging from his clothes and aura, he seemed to be a level higher than the leader who sent them here. I'm Hu Yang. In the following period of time, it will be up to me to explain everything that has happened here. Thank you in advance, Master Hu. Lin Tianfeng smiled. Master Lin is too polite. As Hu Yang spoke, he put away the white jade token. Everyone, please follow me. Master Lin, you are the last to arrive. The other tribes had already rested in their respective palaces, waiting for the saint's birthday banquet to begin. Hu Yang said as he led the group forward. If we were any later, you ladies would not have made it. Lin Tianfeng smiled apologetically. We were delayed because of some matters. Please don't blame us. Master Lin, you don't have to worry about this. His Highness won't care about such trivial matters. Hu Yang shook his head. Then, Lin Tianfeng and Hu Yang chatted for a while and soon arrived at their destination. This was a relatively short mountain peak, and a palace was located on top of it. Although it was called a palace, it was far inferior to the ones above. This is the Wind Lotus Palace. It will also be the place where you will rest for a period of time. Hu Yang led them over. Suddenly, a burst of bell-like laughter came from the side. It seemed that a few women were excitedly discussing something at the corner of the palace. The Yuntian Tower is indeed extraordinary. Everywhere is extremely expensive. I heard that the cup of tea we just drank cost 100,000 white crystal coins per tael. Really? That's really. If only we could live here for the rest of our lives. What's the point of living here? The ones above are the real good places. Do you see the one at the top? Rumor has it that that's the saint's palace. Ah, that's not a place where just anyone can go. Isn't that simple? Now that the saint is choosing a concubine, as long as you are chosen, shoo. Lower your voice. You really aren't afraid of being overheard. Although there are many outstanding women from the various tribes, who doesn't know that the position of concubine has already been decided? Hearing this, Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. You mean, the one from the Immortal Water Mausoleum? Other than her, who else could it be? Rumor has it that she is a stunning beauty, and she was born with a rare Tianjing Yuan meridian, just like the saint. That's not all. You must know that the Jiang clan in the Immortal Water Mausoleum is the most powerful existence among all the tribes. Moreover, the old clan leader of the Yuntian Tower has a close relationship with the Jiang clan, and he has always doted on Miss Jiang. When she was young, she spent most of her time at the Yuntian Tower. It's probably because the old clan leader is in seclusion, and she is diligent in her cultivation, that she has less contact with the Yuntian Tower. With these conditions, do you think that the position of concubine will fall into her family's hands? If that's the case, then why does the saint still choose a concubine with such great fanfare? Can't he just get engaged to Miss Jiang directly? Who knows? Anyway, we're just here to serve as a foil. Besides, even if the concubine can't be chosen, there are still concubines, right? At the very least, there are concubines. As long as she is chosen, she won't have to worry for the rest of her life. I've heard that the saint is unparalleled in his handsomeness, like an immortal. I wonder what he looks like. Chu Luiyue stroked his chin. Oh, concubine, concubine, concubine. So the Holy Son's life was actually so good. Chapter 1057. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but laugh. The people around them were originally quietly listening to the women in the corner, but Chu Liyue's laughter immediately broke the silence. Lin Tianfeng and the others looked over strangely. The commotion here also attracted the attention of the women, who were chatting happily not far away. They quickly stopped and looked over nervously. It was fine for them to talk like this in private, but if someone with ulterior motives overheard, when they saw Hu Yang standing at the front, the women's faces turned slightly pale, but they secretly heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. This was because Hu Yang wasn't directly responsible for looking after them. They quickly calmed down, looked at each other and walked over. "Greetings, Lord Hu." The three women bowed in unison. They were all beautiful, slender and dainty. Their movements were very graceful and dignified. It was obvious that they had learned the relevant etiquette before, and it was impossible to find fault with them. Hu Yang nodded and pointed to Lin Tianfeng. "This is clan leader Lin of Heavenly Cave Cliff." Heavenly Cave Cliff. The women showed a look of understanding, then smiled and bowed. "Greetings, clan leader Lin. I've heard of your name for a long time, and seeing you today, I can see that you live up to your reputation." These words were said very politely, and also very flattering. It would be better if they could cover up the contempt and disdain in their eyes. Lin Tianfeng was able to keep his composure, and didn't argue with them. His expression was calm, and he didn't reveal anything. "Ladies, you're too polite. If I'm selected this time, I'll be the one to bow to you in the future." The expressions of the women on the other side changed instantly. Wasn't he clearly mocking them? But considering the other party's identity, and the fact that Hu Yang and the others were standing around, they didn't want to make things too ugly, so they swallowed their anger and forced a smile. "Not at all. I'm just a lowly person. How could I dare to have such extravagant hopes?" Lin Qifei suddenly coughed. Hearing this, Lin Tianfeng immediately turned around and asked worriedly, "Jifei, are you feeling unwell?" Hu Yang said, "Fourth young master Lin, this way please." As he spoke, he led his men all the way to the side hall. Chu Luiyue was about to follow, but was suddenly stopped by those women. "Miss, please wait." Chu Luiyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. "Is something the matter?" A beautiful woman in a lotus-colored dress smiled slightly, but there was no smile in her eyes. "May I ask, what were you laughing at just now?" Chu Luiyue also laughed. "It's nothing. I just thought of something and chuckled. What's wrong? Could it be that the few of you have something against this?" The woman sneered and took a few steps forward, approaching Chu Luiyue. The three women who had originally planned to follow Lin Tianfeng and the others hurriedly stepped forward and stood beside Chu Luiyue. "What are you trying to do?" "We don't want to do anything. It's just that this lady seemed to be mocking us just now. We just want to clarify things." The woman in the lotus-colored dress stared at Chu Luiyue with a mocking gaze. Chu Luiyue gave the others a reassuring look and smiled faintly. "I'm not mocking you, but I think what you said makes a lot of sense. No matter who you are, as long as you're chosen, you'll have a meteoric rise. Besides Rong, His Highness the Son of Saint is indeed enchanting, noble and graceful." She suddenly paused. "His Highness the Son of Saint is indeed what?" The women opposite her asked anxiously. "His Highness the Son of Saint is indeed the dream man of many women." Chu Luiyue smiled and said word by word, Do I need you to tell me that? But someone like you won't have a chance." The woman in the lotus-colored dress impudently sized up Chu Luiyue. The mocking expression on her face was enough to explain everything. "Hey, show some respect. Miss Dugu is an 8th grade celestial physician. She's also an honored guest of Heavenly Cave Cliff." The women beside Chu Luiyue couldn't help but retort. Only then did the women opposite her realize that this ordinary-looking woman in front of them didn't seem to be participating in the consort selection hall this time. There was a little boy standing next to her. Just as the two sides were about to continue arguing, Chu Luiyue said, "Forget it, let's go back first." She wasn't interested in wasting time here with these people. However, her words were a sign of weakness in the eyes of the other party. After they turned and left, the women didn't lower their voices, and were still full of mockery. "At least she knows her place. I'm afraid no man will take a second look at her if she goes out like this." It's useless even if she's beautiful. Heavenly Cave Cliff. Pfft. I thought they'd tactfully give up. Who knew that they'd be so thick-skinned and come? What a pity. If we came a little earlier and changed our residence, we wouldn't have to squeeze in with them. Forget it, there's nothing to say to these people. Let's go back and prepare first. The birthday banquet is about to begin. Those people from Cold Mountain Valley are too much. A woman finally couldn't help but whisper. They're clearly not much stronger than us. What right do they have to be so arrogant? Chu Luiyue smiled indifferently. If they want to make a scene, let them. We just have to do our own thing. Miss Dugu, aren't you angry? Another woman asked curiously. They said that about you. Chu Luiyue touched her face and nodded thoughtfully. Actually, what they said isn't without reason. This face is indeed not qualified to participate in the consort selection hall. The women looked at each other speechlessly. Dugu, you really didn't seem to care about this at all. Chu Luiyue walked into the room, took Lin Qifei's pulse, and handed over a pill. This is the last one. I'll continue to refine it when I have time. You should be able to recover more than half in a month or so. It's just that fourth young master's body has been burdened by illness for many years. He needs to rest well for about a year or so before he can fully recover. Lin Qifei nodded lightly. Thank you, Master Lin. The people from Cold Mountain Valley have already taken the main hall. I'll have to trouble you to stay in this side hall for the time being. Hu Yang sighed and said. Lin Tianfeng wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he didn't flare up and only nodded. At this moment, a series of familiar footsteps suddenly came from outside. Chu Luiyue seemed to sense something and looked back. A figure appeared at the door. It was Yanqing. Hu Yang was shocked. He hurried forward and asked respectfully, Lord Yanqing, why are you here? Yanqing was in a hurry. Her eyes quickly searched the room. When she saw Chu Luiyue, her heart skipped a beat. Chu Luiyue smiled, her red lips slightly opened. Lord Yanqing? Chapter 1058. Yanqing hurriedly walked to Chu Luiyue and was about to speak when the girl suddenly stepped forward. Greetings, Lord Yanqing. I am Dugu, said Chu Luiyue with a smile and bowed at the same time. Yanqing's legs turned to jelly, and he almost knelt on the ground. You, he spoke in a trembling voice, but before he could say anything, he saw Chu Luiyue's bright black eyes. That pair of star-like eyes were glowing with a clear and bright light. Yanqing choked, and the rest of his words were stuck in his throat. He complained incessantly in his heart. His Highness was supposed to come, but he was stopped by Jiang Jiwan. Hearing that it had something to do with the academy, His Highness temporarily stayed behind and let him come first. Yanqing had already expected that Chu Luiyue would not be in a good mood after knowing these things. She might be angry, or reprimanded. But he did not expect that she would not even want to admit her identity. But this was even scarier than those reactions. Yanqing regretted it for a moment. He should have waited to come with His Highness. Why did he have to become cannon fodder now? Only then did the surrounding people realize that the atmosphere between the two was very unusual. Hu Yang's eyes darted back and forth between the two of them, and he asked tentatively, Lord Yanqing, are you acquainted with Miss Dugu? Yanqing swallowed his saliva with difficulty. His throat was tight. Yes. I have met Lord Yanqing a few times before, but at that time, I did not know Lord Yanqing's identity. Only today did I know that Lord Yanqing's identity is so impressive. Chu Luiyue responded smoothly, and the smile on her face did not diminish at all. She looked very relaxed. However, in the ears of the people around them, these words were no different from a clap of thunder. Dugu actually knows Yanqing? He was the closest confidant of His Highness the Saint. Such a status was enough to kill 90% of the people in Yuntian Tower. Yanqing's eyes twitched. Every word that came out of Chu Luiyue's mouth was like roasting him on a rack. Lin Tianfeng looked on in amazement from the side. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind. Wait a minute. Dugu was an outsider, so she shouldn't have been to the Divine Ruins world before. In that case, did the two of them know each other outside the Divine Ruins realm? Looking at the reactions of the two people, especially the expression of this Yanqing, How could it be that they had only met a few times? Could it be Lin Tianfeng had a bold and absurd conjecture? This idea was so absurd that just thinking about it made his heart beat uncontrollably. He almost subconsciously looked at Lin Qifei, only to see that Lin Qifei was also observing the two people thoughtfully. The surrounding people made Yanqing feel uneasy. He swallowed hard. "Miss Dugu, may I have a word with you?" The already quiet room became even more silent. Who was Yanqing? With his status, how could he speak so politely to a woman? In fact, this was no longer just politeness. It was almost like he was begging. Everyone present was shocked. Only the person in question, Chu Luyue, didn't look surprised at all. In fact, the smile on his face deepened. "Sure." Yanqing took a deep breath and stretched out his hand. "This way, please." After Yanqing and Chu Luyue left, the remaining people fell into a long silence. After an unknown period of time, Hu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked at Lin Tianfeng in disbelief and said anxiously, "Patriarch Lin, Miss Dugu knows Lord Yanqing. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Lin Tianfeng said innocently, I didn't know. How long had they known Dugu? How could they know everything?" Right now he was also filled with shock, all right. "Oh my God, Lord Yanqing. Is he the Yanqing by His Highness the Holy Sun's side?" A woman beside him widened her eyes and asked cautiously. Hu Yang sighed. "Other than him, who else could it be?" The young ladies looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with shock. "I heard that Lord Yanqing is one of His Highness the Holy Sun's most trusted confidants. He also has a high status in the Yuntian Tower. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to know him. From what they said, it seems like they met outside the world of God. I didn't expect Miss Dugu to have such a relationship. They seem to be very close." Anyone with eyes could see that Yanqing's attitude in front of Dugu was very different. Hu Yang came back to his senses. He couldn't hide the excitement on his face. This Miss Dugu is too much. She should have said so earlier. With this relationship, their situation in the Yuntian Tower would be much better than before. Another woman said weakly. "Didn't she say that she didn't know Lord Yanqing's identity and only found out after coming here? She probably didn't expect this to happen, right?" However, Hu Yang laughed out loud. "Actually, that's not important. Miss Dugu knows Lord Yanqing. Who knows how much more convenient it will be for all of you in the future? Lord Yanqing has always been a cold-hearted person. He is only loyal to His Highness the Holy Sun. He doesn't care about most of the others. To be able to establish a relationship with him, TSK. He smiled at Lin Tianfeng and said, Lin Tianfeng. "Master Lin, many of the clans have tried to establish a good relationship with Lord Yanqing, but to no avail. You guys are much better than them." The Lin family of Cave Heaven Cliff had always been the weakest among the clans. Who would have thought that they would be so lucky? Lin Tianfeng laughed, and then looked at Lin Qifei. Could it be that guess was true? Yanqing is guilty. Please punish me, Miss Lu Liyue. As soon as Yanqing entered the room, he knelt down on one knee and admitted his mistake. Chu Luyue widened her eyes slightly as if she were shocked. "Lord Yanqing, what are you doing? Please get up. I can't accept this bow. If outsiders know about this, it will be inappropriate." Yanqing smiled bitterly and begged, "Don't worry. Please don't make fun of me. I had no choice but to hide it from you." "Oh, no choice. So your master was also forced to do it?" Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Yanqing choked. "If I didn't come this time, I'm afraid that His Highness would have chosen a harem and lived a carefree life here. Right? This. You really misunderstood. There are all kinds of beauties here. If I were a man, I would be tempted to see them." Yanqing felt suffocated. For the first time he blamed his master. Why should his subordinate bear the responsibility for the trouble he caused? Yanqing felt a headache coming on. "Miss Lu Yu, His Highness wanted to pick you up personally, but Miss Jiang came to him at the last minute, so His Highness asked me to come first. It's not good to live in Wind Lotus Garden. Why don't you come with me first?" Chu Luyue crossed her arms and smiled faintly. "Miss Jiang." Chapter 1059. Rumor had it that Lord Yin Qing was a knife in the hands of the saint. With a cold face and a cold heart, he was decisive in killing. Even if he had killed thousands of people and fought on the battlefield, he would still be cold and cruel. But today, he knew how to write the word scared for the first time. Chu Luiyue was smiling, but Yin Qing felt a chill down his spine. He felt that he had said something wrong. And it was not just a little wrong, but a big mistake. He struggled to say, No, His Highness has something important to discuss with that person. It's not about anything else. Oh, Chu Luiyue nodded. It seems that it's really something important. But it doesn't matter if he doesn't come. The consort selection hall is just around the corner. He must be very busy. Yin Qing felt that it was useless to keep struggling. He closed his eyes in despair. Ms. Luiyue, take it that I'm begging you. Please follow me up first. His Highness will be worried if he doesn't see you later. I'm an outsider. Now I can come to the Yuntian Tower, because of my relationship with the Lin family of Dongtian Cliff. Naturally, I have to go with them. How can I just leave like this? Chu Luiyue refused without thinking. She didn't have to come because he didn't want to, but she had to go because he wanted her to? How could there be such a good thing in the world? Besides, why can't I see him? In 4 hours, the birthday banquet will start. Won't we see him then? But it's really inconvenient for you to stay here. Yin Qing wanted to persuade her again, but when he looked up and saw Chu Luiyue's faint smile, he swallowed the rest of his words and changed the topic. Then I'll listen to you. If there's anything, just let me know. Chu Luiyue waved his hand. Okay, since you've said it out loud, I'll see what I can do. Let's go. Although Chu Luiyue urged her to leave, Yin Qing still respectfully sent her back to her previous place. When the two of them arrived at the door of the room, everyone in the room heard the commotion and looked over. Then, I'll leave first. After Yin Qing finished speaking and saw Chu Luiyue nod, she turned around and left. After taking a step forward, he turned back to look at Hu Yang. You must take good care of Miss Dugu and the others. Hu Yang hurriedly said, I understand. Rest assured, Madam Yin Qing. Yin Qing nodded. Because he failed to invite Chu Luiyue up, he left with a heavy heart. On the other hand, Chu Luiyue's expression remained the same. He walked straight to a nearby chair and sat down as if nothing had happened. This contrast was even more shocking to the crowd. Miss Dugu, are you satisfied with this place? Hu Yang carefully asked. In truth, he had been very polite to Lin Tianfeng and the others, but now, he was even more respectful to Chu Luiyue. Madam Yin Qing had said to take good care of these people before she left, but who couldn't tell that she was referring to Duguyu? Even a ghost wouldn't believe that there was no relationship between them. Chu Luiyue looked around and smiled. It's pretty good. In the eyes of Hu Yang, Yin Qing, and the others, this place might not be good enough. But in reality, it was more luxurious and noble than most of the palaces she had seen before. Moreover, it wasn't the exaggerated kind of grandeur, but the kind of nobility that only a top-notch family with a deep foundation and a long history could exude. No wonder Rong Xiu was so rich. With such a large family fortune, why worry about money? Hu Yang's impression of Chu Luiyue improved. It was fine that she didn't know about Madame Yin Qing's identity, but now that she did, she didn't intend to use this relationship to her own benefit. Moreover, her attitude was as amiable as before. How rare. The smile on his face became more genuine. That's good. I'll be staying next door. If there's anything you need, just tell me. With that, he clasped his hands at Chu Luiyue, Lin Tianfeng, and the others before leaving. The remaining people all looked at Chu Luiyue with different expressions. Chu Luiyue raised her gaze slightly and looked at the others. She smiled and said, Why is everyone looking at me like that? What do you think? Miss Dugu, I didn't expect that you and Madame Yin Qing would have such fate. The girls were more simple-minded and didn't have so many scruples, so they simply spoke directly. How did you know each other? Chu Luiyue sipped her tea and said slowly, It's just a coincidence. There's nothing much to say about it. Could it be that she actually knew him because of his master? Hearing this ambiguous answer, the girls looked at each other in dismay, somewhat disappointed. This It was as good as not saying anything. All right, it's getting late. His Highness the Saint's birthday banquet is about to begin. You can all go and prepare yourselves. Lin Tianfeng suddenly said. With his reminder, the girls suddenly came to their senses. That's right. The main reason they came here was the consort selection ceremony. In a while, the carefully selected noble ladies of each tribe would all appear together. At that time, naturally, there would be a competition for beauty. Although they knew that they had no hope of being selected, they still had to prepare carefully, so as not to embarrass Cave Heaven Cliff. The girls excused themselves and left together. Lin Mo said to the two remaining elders, "Then let's go first." Lu Ruhai frowned and glanced at Chu Luyue. Sensing his gaze, Chu Luyue turned her gaze. The two looked at each other for a moment. Lu Ruhai was the first to look away. With a cold snort, he waved his sleeves and walked out. Lin Mo coughed awkwardly and tried to persuade Chu Luyue. "Miss Duga, don't worry. Ruhai is just a little hot-tempered. He doesn't mean to target you, so don't mind him. Even if he did have some thoughts before. Now that he knew that Duguyu was acquainted with Lord Yanqing, he should have dismissed them." Chu Luyue's eyes curved into crescents. "Thank you for your concern, Elder Lin Mo. I know all of this." Soon, only Lin Tianfeng and his son, Chu Luyue, and Debao were left in the room. Lin Tianfeng looked at Chu Luyue with a complicated gaze, as if he wanted to say something, but stopped. "Patriarch Lin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask," Chu Luyue said directly. Lin Tianfeng paused. "Miss Dugu, I don't mean to offend you, but I feel that this matter is really strange. This you and that Lord Yanqing." Speaking of this, he glanced at Debao, who had been so quiet that it was as if he didn't exist, and a trace of hesitation appeared on his face. "Patriarch Lin, if you have something to say, then just say it. If I can listen, so can Debao." Hearing her words, Lin Tianfeng gritted his teeth. "Actually, what I want to ask is Lord Yanqing the person Miss Duga mentioned before? That is, Debao's birth." Crack. Debao split the table next to him in half. Chapter 1060. Cough. Chu Luyue didn't expect Lin Tianfeng to think that way. She almost couldn't breathe properly. Hearing this, she knew that something was wrong and quickly grabbed Debao's other hand. "Debao." Duga Mabao immediately calmed down when her soft hand covered his slightly cold one. He glanced at Lin Tianfeng, his eyes extremely cold. A cold glint flashed through those devilish purple eyes. Lin Tianfeng suddenly felt a chill in his heart, as if a chill had risen from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. But Dugu Mabao's face was immediately pushed away by Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue looked at him in fear. "Master, are you really not afraid of your identity being exposed?" Dugu Mabao's eyes flashed. "He's asking for death." Chu Luyue closed her eyes. "He didn't do it on purpose. I'll explain it for you later. Tell me, what's the point of looking at him like that, other than arousing suspicion? I can kill him." Dugu Mabao didn't speak, but his expression was extremely serious. As long as he wanted to, Lin Tianfeng would definitely not be able to leave alive. Chu Luyue. Master is master. Lin Tianfeng was the cliff master of the Heavenly Cave Cliff, and he was a powerhouse who had completely entered the realm of the gods. But Dugu Mabao didn't seem to care at all. Chu Luyue knew him too well. If he said that he could kill Lin Tianfeng with his gaze, then he could definitely do it. Chu Luyue closed her eyes and quickly leaned over to his ear, warning him in an extremely weak voice. "If you don't cooperate, I'll spank you in public." Dugu Mabao suddenly looked up, but Chu Luyue pressed him on the shoulder. "Dugu Mabao. He Master Lin, don't mind him. This child is more sensitive and precocious. It's inevitable that he would get emotional when he heard this. It's my fault, I didn't think it through before." Chu Luyue explained as he restrained Dugu Mabao. "Also that, you've really misunderstood. Yanqing and I. Master, it's not what you think." Lin Tianfeng was skeptical. If it wasn't this relationship, then what relationship could it be? Lord Yanqing was famous for being a cold-faced king of hell. If they had only met a few times, why would it be like this? Moreover, his gaze landed on the table that had been shattered by Dugu Mabao, and his heart still palpitated. How could this be the strength of a 3-year-old child? Moreover, he had clearly sensed a ghastly killing intent just now. Father I.S.'s. Lin Jifei suddenly said. Lin Tianfeng. SSS tired? That's right, that's right. After running around for so long, your body can't take it for the time being. Then you should rest first. I won't disturb you. After he finished speaking, he looked at Chu Luihua questioningly. Lin Jifei said, I'd like to ask Miss Dugu to stay and discuss the follow-up treatment. Lin Tianfeng realized that his son wanted to chase him out, so he didn't say anything more and left after a few words of advice. After he left, the room calmed down again. Chu Luihua then let go of Dugu Mabao. Dugu Mabao was no longer angry. He still had a cold expression on his face, but he didn't make a move in the end. Miss Dugu, please forgive my father for offending you just now, Lin Jifei said. Chu Luihua waved his hand. It's nothing. Master Lin is also concerned about helping me. I understand. It's just that Master Yanqing and I. Chu Luihua couldn't help but smile bitterly. She never thought that things would develop in such a way. Fourth young master, you don't think so too, do you? Lin Jifei shook his head. I believe Miss Dugu's words. He is not the person you're looking for. Chu Luihua looked at him with some surprise. Oh, fourth young master, why are you so sure? Thinking back to what happened just now, it seemed that it was easy to misunderstand. But Lin Jifei's tone seemed to be very certain. Lin Jifei smiled faintly. Intuition. The atmosphere between the two of them was indeed unusual. It wasn't an ordinary friendship that they had met a few times, but it was definitely not what Lin Tianfeng had guessed. The main reason why he was so sure was actually because of her. When she saw Master Yanqing, her eyes didn't shine brightly. It was completely different from the way she looked when she mentioned that person that day. So, the person she was looking for was definitely someone else. Chu Luihua's red lips curled slightly. Lin Jifei was much smarter and sharper than Lin Tianfeng. Actually, if Miss Dugu really wants to find that person, why don't you just ask Master Yanqing for help? His status in the Yuntian Tower is not low. If he agrees to help, it should save a lot of effort. Lin Jifei didn't intend to ask about the matter between Chu Luihua and Yanqing, so he went back to the topic. Chu Luihua rested her chin on one hand, looking thoughtful. After a moment she laughed. That's not necessary. His Highness the Son of God's banquet is about to start. Everyone should be there by then. I think we should be able to find him. This was his birthday banquet, and also his concubine selection hall. He should be there, right? 2 hours passed quickly. Chu Luihua was adjusting her breath in her room, when she suddenly heard the deep and melodious sound of a bell coming from outside. Dong! The sound of the bell quickly spread and fell clearly into everyone's ears. Chu Luihua suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were as bright as the stars. She looked outside through the window. This was the birthday banquet was about to begin. Digression. Continued at 6 p.m., the list of winners of the August-related activities. 1. Xiaoxiang Academy Star of the Monthly Votes. A Pack of Little Demons, 42 votes. Star of the Review. Memories Yenio 2. QQ Reading Star of the Review. Yinyatonglu, 155 votes. Star of the Review. Ice Cream, Xiaojiu, inseparable friends on the above list. Please add the group in 3 days and privately contact the group leader to receive the related gifts. Chapter 1061. Knock knock. Hu Yang's voice came from outside the door. Miss Dugu, it's time for us to set off. Coming. Chu Luihua replied and turned to look at Dugu Mabao. Let's go to Bao? Dugu Mabao was sitting with his back facing her. He didn't move when he heard that, and his small back view exuded a cold aura. Chu Luihua coughed and walked over. From the side, Dugu Mabao had his arms crossed and his eyes closed. His thick eyelashes were slightly curled. Although his small face was cold, his skin was still translucent, and he looked adorable. After they came back, Dugu Mabao had been in this position for 4 whole hours without moving. Chu Luihua secretly admired his composure. At the same time, she thought that this man was very difficult to coax. However, looking at him like this, it was hard for anyone to really get angry. Chu Luihua's heart skipped a beat, and she softened her voice. I promise that I'll clarify everything this time, okay? Don't you want to clarify these things in front of everyone? Dugu Mabao finally opened his eyes. His devilish purple eyes were as clear as jade. Really? Of course. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. I can't possibly watch my own fiancé become someone else's husband, right? Then what do you want to do? Dugu Mabao narrowed his eyes and sized her up. With her current inconspicuous appearance, she probably wouldn't be able to do anything even if she went. Chu Luiwei couldn't help but ruffle his hair, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Don't ask about this first. I have my own plans. When Chu Luiwei walked out, Lin Tianfeng and the others were already waiting in the courtyard. The girls had also dressed up meticulously, and they looked even more charming than before. Miss Dugu, why didn't you change your clothes? A girl asked curiously. Chu Luiwei chuckled. Why should I change my clothes? This is His Highness the Holy Sun's birthday banquet, the woman mumbled. Even if Duguyu wasn't going to participate in the consort selection hall. But for such an occasion, shouldn't she dress up grandly? But seeing that she didn't seem to care, they didn't say anything more. With her ordinary appearance, so what if she changed into a set of luxurious clothes? An ear-piercing voice of mockery rang out. Chu Luiwei and the others looked over. He saw a group of people walking towards him from the main hall. The leader was a burly middle-aged man. Beside him was a soldier in black armor. The totem of the Yuntian Tower was tattooed on the left side of his chest. He was dressed the same as Hu Yang, so it was obvious that he was of the same status as Hu Yang. Behind the two of them were a few old men and a few women. Without a doubt, these people were also wearing exquisite makeup. From her hair to her fingernails, she had put in a lot of effort. The woman who had spoken earlier was the one who had confronted Chu Luiwei at the beginning. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and sneered. It's better for some people to know their own limits. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. She hadn't said that she was going to participate in the consort selection hall. But the other party was so insistent. Clearly, they were still holding a grudge against her for laughing at them earlier. They also thought that they were easy to bully from Grotto Heaven Cliff. So they were so bold. Not to mention whether she was good-looking or not. Just her character alone was enough to annoy people. Before Chu Luiwei could retort, Hu Yang had already stepped forward and stared at the woman. Miss Han Zishu, please be careful with your words. Han Zishu looked at Hu Yang in surprise. What was going on? This Hu Yang actually dared to speak to her like that in front of so many people? He was clearly very humble earlier. The valley master of the cold mountain valley, Han Quan, also frowned, but quickly returned to normal. Haha. Lord Hu Yang, please don't take offense. My daughter has always been outspoken. If she has offended you, please forgive her. Hu Yang said indifferently. Whether she is being outspoken or intentionally slandering you, everyone knows in their hearts. Valley Master Han, this is the Yuntian Tower after all, not the cold mountain valley. If your daughter still can't control her temper, then I'm afraid she won't gain the favor of His Highness Saint. You! Han Zishu's face turned pale with anger. How dare you curse me? Hu Yang snorted. Don't think too much. I'm just reminding you. It's up to you whether you want to take it or not. This time, even Han Quan's expression didn't look good. He was just casually teasing them. But who knew that Hu Yang would be so ungrateful? He dared to challenge them in public. Hu Yang, everyone here is a guest. What are you doing? The soldier standing next to Han Quan frowned and spoke in a commanding tone. Hurry up and apologize to Valley Master Han and Miss Han. Hu Yang snorted and ignored him. He looked at Lin Tianfeng and the others. Family Master Lin, Miss Dugu, this way please. Then, the group really left, leaving the people in the cold mountain valley to wait. How did he become so arrogant all of a sudden? Han Quan couldn't help but ask angrily. Lord Chen Ting, he wasn't like this when he saw you before. Chen Ting also frowned. Although he and Hu Yang were at the same level, he had some connections with the higher-ups, so he was slightly better off than Hu Yang. Usually, Hu Yang would be very polite when they met. What was wrong with him today? Why was he so stubborn? Does he think that those from Heavenly Cave Cliff have a chance to be chosen by His Highness Saint? Han Zishu was so angry that she laughed. When Ting heard this, he immediately said, "How is that possible? Heavenly Cave Cliff is the weakest among all the tribes. His Highness Saint won't even look at them, let alone the others." "Forget it. Since he's so arrogant now, we'll let him go first. In the future, we'll have a chance to get back at him," Han Quan said in a deep voice. "Let's go quickly. We can't be late for His Highness Saint's birthday banquet." The banquet was held on the highest peak of the main island, Upstart Peak. Upstart Peak is the most sacred place of the Yuntian Tower. It's heavily guarded, and there are strict rules for entry and exit. Other than the family master, His Highness Saint, and the various elders, anyone who wants to enter Upstart Peak has to get permission. Hu Yang explained as he led the group up the stairs. There are 2 halls on Upstart Peak. Do you see the one at the middle of the mountain? That's the Ethereal Hall, the place where the banquet will be held today. The Sacrificial God Hall occupies a huge area and has a complicated layout. When we enter later, you must follow me closely and don't wander around. The few of them followed his gaze and saw a majestic palace at the middle of the mountain. At this moment, they could vaguely see the square in front of the palace. It was very lively and crowded. "What's at the top of the mountain?" Chu Luyue suddenly looked at the palace at the top of the mountain and asked. The sun was setting in the west, and the brilliant light shrouded the black palace. It was so tall that it seemed unreachable. Chapter 1062. Hu Yang's face immediately turned solemn and respectful. "That's the Sacrificial God Hall. His Highness the Holy Sun lived there. Compared to the Ethereal Hall, the Sacrificial God Hall is even more majestic. Other than His Holiness and his trusted aides, no one else is allowed to approach the Sacrificial God Hall." Chu Luyue narrowed his eyes. As expected, that was where Rong Xiu lived. It was probably where he had been staying for the past few years as well. Actually, that used to be the seat of the clan head. But the clan head is currently in seclusion. His Holiness is in charge of the clan affairs, so Hu Yang didn't continue speaking, but everyone understood what he was trying to say. In truth, the current Holy Sun was already the most esteemed existence in the Yuntian Tower. Everyone stared at the Black Palace with grim expressions. Even from such a distance, they could still feel the overwhelming pressure emanating from it. Chu Luyue suddenly chuckled softly. "I see. I'm sure Your Highness the Holy Sun must be very busy?" Hu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He quickly scanned the surroundings to make sure that no one was around before heaving a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at Chu Luyue with a conflicted expression. "Miss Dugu, we're about to reach the Ethereal Hall, so I hope that you don't say such things in the future lest you get into trouble." Seeing the anxious look on Hu Yang's face, Chu Luyue heaved a sigh of relief. "I understand." Then the group continued to move forward. Roughly 15 minutes later, Hu Yang finally came to a stop. They were currently standing on a mountain beside the Ascension Peak, and their location was almost at the same level as the Ethereal Hall. Hu Yang took out his white jade token and infused a surge of origin energy into it. The token glowed brightly. The head of the Lin clan has arrived. It did not take long for a silvery streak of light to fly over from the Ethereal Hall. It was as if a galaxy had descended from the heavens. It was a dazzling sight. Under the darkening sky, it was exceptionally beautiful. At the same time, a similar streak of light flew out from Hu Yang's white jade token and connected with the silver streak of light. Of course, compared to the one that had flown over from the Ethereal Hall, Hu Yang's was far inferior. It was obvious that the person in charge of receiving them was even stronger than Hu Yang. Hu Yang was the first to jump up and put away the token. "Everyone please." Apart from this group of people, there were a few other similarly gorgeous streams of flowing light that transformed into bridges all around Upstart Peak. Obviously, they were also people from other tribes who had come to attend the banquet. The closer Chu Luyue got to the Ethereal Hall, the clearer he could feel the overwhelming pressure coming from the Ethereal Hall. She looked over. In front of the Ethereal Hall was a massive square paved with white jade. On one side of the square, near the cliff, a large black bell floated quietly. The sound of the bell just now seemed to have come from here. Around the square, soldiers in black armor were lined up neatly. Although there were many people coming and going, it was very orderly. Obviously, no matter what kind of background they came from, they all became well-behaved and followed the rules here. Moreover, at a glance, they were all dressed in luxurious brocade robes and were extremely solemn. The group finally landed on the ground. Welcome Clan Head Lin. As soon as their feet touched the ground, someone immediately rushed forward to welcome them. The person who had just arrived seemed to be in his 30s. Dressed in black armor, he had a thin face but a pair of spirited eyes. He looked very capable. His clothes were the same as Hu Yang's, but the aura he emanated was much stronger. Even Chen Ting couldn't compare to him. It was no wonder why he was able to work here. Just as Chu Luiyue was thinking about this, the other party suddenly turned to look at her. You must be Miss Dugu, right? Chu Luiyue was taken aback for a moment before coming to a realization. From the looks of it, Yan Qing had already informed him about this matter. She nodded with a smile. That's right. A smile surfaced on the man's face. It's good that you're here. The seats have already been arranged for you. Please come in. After saying those words, he turned around and led the way. Lin Tianfeng and the others couldn't help but glance at Chu Luiyue. However, Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change at all. She simply raised her eyebrows and followed him in. The main hall of the ethereal hall was resplendent and majestic. In the main hall, there was a throne carved out of black jade, giving it a dignified air. Below it, there were several white jade tables arranged neatly in the middle, and the crowd was seated on both sides. The various tribes seemed to have arranged their seats in advance, and the names of their respective tribes were written on the side of each table. Behind each table, there were a few seats left. Obviously, they were reserved for the people of the various clans who came together. At this moment, more than half of the seats in the main hall were already filled. The crowd was either chatting with one another or chatting with one another privately. It was a lively atmosphere, but there was a hint of restraint in it. From time to time, many people would look outside the hall. Clearly, they were waiting for the most important person of the night. As for the arrival of Lin Tianfeng and the others, it didn't cause too much of a commotion. Most people only glanced in their direction for a moment before retracting their gazes. Grotto Heaven Cliff? There was nothing to worry about. Thus, Chu Luiyue and the rest were led by the soldier to their table in a very low-key manner. Clan Head Lin, this is the seat of the Grotto Heaven Cliff. Please take a seat. However, Lin Tianfeng didn't move. Instead, he looked at the soldier doubtfully. Here. Are you kidding me? This is the first row. One must know that those who were able to sit in the first row in such an occasion were the top tribes. Those like the Grotto Heaven Cliff would usually be seated in the last row, in an inconspicuous corner. But now, wasn't this seat a little too conspicuous? Even if it was on account of Lord Yan Qing, it didn't seem appropriate for them to do so. Even Hu Yang was taken aback and hurriedly asked, "What's the matter?" He quickly asked, "Are you sure it's here?" "Of course I'm sure." The soldier chuckled. "Everyone don't worry. We won't make a mistake in such matters." Lin Tianfeng subconsciously glanced at Chu Luiyue. This position, it should be thanks to her fortune. Since they arranged it, let's just sit down. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she walked over with a relaxed expression. Lin Tianfeng could only nod and lead the rest of the people to sit down rather nervously. As soon as they sat down, the hall quickly quieted down. Everyone looked over with different expressions in their eyes. Obviously, everyone could tell that something was wrong. Lin Tianfeng coughed and looked at Chu Luiyue inquiringly. He lowered his voice. "Miss Dugu, what exactly are you and Lord Yan Qing? His Highness the Chosen One has arrived." Suddenly, a loud and clear voice transmitted over. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. She looked up. A man appeared outside the hall. He was dressed in a black brocade robe. He was tall and slender, and his bones were clear and elegant. The flowing light in the hall reflected on his face, making him the most beautiful man in the world. Before he stood still, he looked at the people in the hall, as if he was looking for something. As if they were telepathic, he looked straight in Chu Luiyue's direction. A ripple flashed across his deep and pure phoenix eyes. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows were like the spring wind melting snow, containing nostalgia and a smile. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to be hit by something soft. Her lips moved slightly. She almost wanted to call out to him directly. At this moment, a woman's voice sounded. "Your Highness, why are you walking so fast? I can't keep up." Chapter 1063. Immediately after, a slender woman walked over leisurely. It was already dark outside. She was dressed in a white dress with a blue jade belt around her slender waist. Her hair was like a cloud, and her hair was like a cloud. Especially her eyes, which were pure and moving, as gentle as water. Her red lips were curled up with a hint of playfulness. Her looks and charm could be considered stunning. Unfortunately, compared to the man in front of her, she seemed a little dull. The crowd first saw Rong Xiu's immortal-like appearance. When they looked at the others, they were not as stunned. However, compared to the many women in the hall, she was obviously better. When she saw the person, Chu Liyue narrowed her starry eyes slightly and smiled playfully. "So this is the rumored eldest young lady Jiang?" Rong Xiu did not seem to hear her. He strode into the hall with his long legs. Jiang Juwen was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly followed him. Earlier on, she had been discussing with Rong Xiu about the academy. Later on, Yan Qing returned and said something to Rong Xiu. After that, Rong Xiu was very absent-minded. If not for the fact that the academy was involved, he would have gotten up and left long ago. Until just now, when the banquet was about to start, he came straight here. He looked as if he was worried about being late. But this was the strangest thing. Rong Xiu was the noble saint. Even if he asked these people to wait here for a few hours, they would not dare to say anything. Moreover, he had always been a strategist. He would never do this, no matter what. He seemed to be in a hurry to do something. Jiang Ziyuan didn't have time to ask clearly before she hurried to follow him. Almost subconsciously, she followed Rong Xiu's line of sight and looked into the hall. Unfortunately, there were too many people in the hall. She could not see clearly who Rong Xiu was looking at. The crowd in the hall finally reacted and hurriedly got up to bow. "Greetings, Your Highness the Saint." Most of the tribe leaders and family heads had already seen Rong Xiu before. At this time they were still calm. However, for many of the women who came with them, it was their first time seeing the rumored saint. Many people blushed and stared blankly at the man who was striding over. Honorable, arrogant. It was rumored that His Highness the Saint was extremely talented and powerful. He was decisive in killing, and had the power to kill. Therefore, most people's first impression of him was reverence. However, when they saw him with their own eyes, they realized that His Highness the Saint was unparalleled in the world. Just his face alone was enough to make countless women's hearts flutter. Moreover, he held a high position and held power. How many women wouldn't be moved by such a man? Then, under the gazes of countless pairs of eyes, Rong Xiu suddenly took a step and walked toward a certain spot. Thus, everyone's gazes followed his gaze. Why do I feel like His Highness the Saint is coming toward us? A woman sitting next to Chu Liyue muttered with a red face and wide eyes. How is that possible? What kind of person is His Highness the Saint? How could he wait? He really is coming here. He seems to be looking at someone. Could he be looking at us? The remaining two women also became excited. Only Chu Liyue lowered his eyes and casually poured himself a glass of wine. Family head Lin. Rong Xiu stood in front of Lin Tianfeng and said calmly, "Why, Your Highness?" Lin Tianfeng was also shocked and hurriedly got up. Lin Tianfeng of Grotto Heaven Cliff greets His Highness the Saint. Lin Tianfeng was a god-level powerhouse and the head of a cliff, so his aura was not weak. But now, standing in front of Rong Xiu, he seemed much smaller and weaker, and his aura was much weaker. Lin Tianfeng did not even dare to look at the man in front of him. The noble aura he exuded after years of being in a high position was not something ordinary people could compare to. Rong Xiu smiled faintly with one hand behind his back. Family head Lin, you must be tired from traveling all the way here, right? The man's voice was deep and pleasant. However, there was a deathly silence in the hall. Almost everyone's face was instantly filled with shock. What did His Highness the Saint just say? He actually asked Lin Tianfeng if he was tired. Which of the tribes present did not come from afar? Which one of them was not tired? Why did he only ask Lin Tianfeng? Grotto Heaven Cliff had always been ranked last among the tribes. Usually, they would not even have the chance to step forward on such occasions. What was going on today? Not only were they arranged to sit in the first row, but His Highness the Saint even came to ask. What kind of honor was this? Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. We are not tired. Lin Tianfeng was also stunned. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses, and hurriedly replied. It is already a great honor for us to be able to attend His Highness' birthday banquet. This was not an exaggeration. Among the tribes, there were not many who were qualified to come to Yuntian Tower. Lin Tianfeng had been here before, but he had always stood in a corner, and was basically a forgotten, transparent existence. He had never been the center of attention like now. Even His Highness the Saint took the initiative to greet him. All of this happened too suddenly. Even though Lin Tianfeng was a person who had seen many storms, his heart was filled with nervousness and apprehension. Family head Lin, don't be nervous. I was just asking casually. I don't mean anything else. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly, then his gaze fell on the people behind Lin Tianfeng. These people must have come with the Lin family's patriarch. Lin Tianfeng hurriedly turned his head and winked at them. The people who had not come back to their senses before stood up and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness the Saint. One of the girls, perhaps because she was too nervous, even moved the table in front of her. Chu Luyue had just poured wine. But before he could pick it up, half the cup was spilled. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. These girls are all from Grotto Heaven Cliff? Lin Tianfeng was shocked and immediately nodded, but then he hurriedly said, These three are, but Miss Dugu is not. Rong Xiu's eyes flashed with interest. Miss Dugu. Lin Tianfeng instinctively turned his head, and saw that Chu Luyue was the only one who was still sitting while the others were standing and bowing. She didn't even raise her head, but was pouring wine for herself. Lin Tianfeng's eyes twitched fiercely. What time is it now? She still has the leisure to drink. Does she know that this is His Highness the Saint? Miss Duga doesn't seem to be happy to see I. Chu Luyue then looked up and smiled slightly. Her pair of starry eyes were even brighter, and more intoxicating than the wine that reflected the lights in her cup. She smiled. Your Highness the Saint, don't misunderstand. I just didn't see you just now. Chapter 1064. Gasps could be heard coming from the hall. Where did this woman come from? How dare she speak to the saint in such a manner? Just as everyone held their breaths and waited for the saint's thunderous response, he suddenly nodded and asked seriously, Do you see it now? His voice was normal. Not only was there no anger, but there was also a rare sense of patience. Everyone was speechless. Your Highness, wake up. What are you doing? Chu Luyue gently swirled her wine glass, tilted her head, and scrutinized him from head to toe. Then she slowly nodded. I see it. Yes. After being separated for so long, they finally met. But she did not expect to meet him in such a place, and with such an identity. The current Rong Xiu was different from the previous Rong Xiu. In the past, he was always dressed in white, elegant and immortal-like. But now, he had changed into a black robe, and instantly had a frightening majesty and vigor. Chu Luyue had only seen him like this once. It was the first day she heard him being addressed as the saint. It was also from then on that Chu Luyue gradually realized that Rong Xiu was definitely not what he appeared to be. She had expected Rong Xiu's background to be extremely extraordinary, but she did not expect it to be so shocking. Your Highness is indeed handsome and charming, enough to attract the hearts of countless women in the world, Chu Luyue said with a half-smile. Your Highness, you know each other? Jiang Jiwan finally could not help but ask behind him. Her eyes wandered back and forth between the two of them, and a subtle sense of discomfort welled up in her heart. Rong Xiu's behavior was really not right. All these years, he had not been close to women, and he did not even bother to talk to them. Whether it was the Yuntian Tower, or the people of the various tribes, they had all tried countless times to persuade him to get married. But he had never agreed. This time, It was probably because he really couldn't delay it any longer. So he nodded and held this concubine selection ceremony. Although there was a huge commotion this time, Jiang Juan knew very well that Rongxiu definitely did not intend to choose 3 wives and 4 concubines. His attitude towards her was even more impatient than before. But now he actually said such words to another woman? Most importantly, this woman's appearance was ordinary, and she didn't seem to be of high birth. What was His Highness thinking? Rongxiu's voice was calm, but he did not deny it. Of course. How could he not recognize his own wife, his own princess consort, and his own fiancée? In the past, I was fortunate enough to see the Holy Sun's face a few times. Chu Liyue smiled. Rongxiu's brows twitched. These words, she clearly didn't want to have anything to do with him? Your Highness, today is your birthday banquet, and also the concubine selection ceremony. Don't waste your time here. Let's get started quickly, Chu Liyue urged. Rongxiu's chest tightened, but in front of so many people, he couldn't say anything for the time being. Then, Miss Dugu, please do as you please. Just treat it as your own home. After that, he took a deep look at Chu Liyue, then turned around and walked up to the stage. Hey, Your Highness. Jiang Jiwan looked at Rongxiu and then at Chu Liyue. What was going on? Ziyuan, come back quickly. At this moment, Jiang Hetian suddenly opened his mouth and waved at Jiang Jiwan. It was really embarrassing for her to stand there alone in front of so many people. Moreover, anyone with eyes could see that Rongxiu treated her very coldly. After entering, he didn't even look at her. Jiang Hetian's heart ached for his daughter, so he hurriedly called her back. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips, then obediently walked over to him and sat behind him. That was the first seat in the first row from the left. It was obvious that the Tomb of Immortal Water had a high status. After Rongxiu left, Lin Tianfeng finally let out the breath he had been holding in. He hurriedly turned to look at Chu Liyue, his brows furrowed. His gaze was complicated, as if he had a lot to say, but didn't know where to start. Miss Dugu, you know His Highness the Son of God. Why didn't you say so before? Lin Tianfeng finally spat out a sentence. Chu Liyue blinked. You didn't ask, Lin Tianfeng. He wouldn't ask such a question unless his brain was fried, right? Who would have thought that an ordinary girl from another world would know the high and mighty Son of God? Huh? Who could? No wonder. Lin Jifei, who was standing aside, suddenly understood something. No wonder Yin Qing treated her like that. He had previously felt that Yin Qing's politeness to her, even a hint of obedience, was abnormal. Now he finally understood. The person she knew was the saint. Lin Qifei suddenly remembered that when she was at the Lin residence, she had once asked if His Highness the Son of God was called Rongxiu. At that time, Lin Tianfeng had even told her not to call the Son of God by his name. At that time, he had thought that she had called out the Son of God's name, because she had just arrived, and was reckless and ignorant. Now that he thought about it, it was because she had placed the Son of God on the same level from the beginning. That was why her tone was so calm and natural. Oh my God! Miss Dugu, you actually know His Highness the Son of God. No wonder he came over to talk to us just now. The girls beside her exclaimed in admiration, their faces full of envy. Chu Liyue smiled faintly and said, Yes, I didn't know his identity before, so I didn't say anything. I see. The girls didn't doubt her, and nodded repeatedly. I knew it was strange that we could sit in the first row. His Highness the Son of God must have known that you were coming and specially arranged it. Yes. In that case, you must be very familiar with him, right? Then do you know what kind of girl His Highness the Son of God likes? Chu Liyue picked up the wine and downed it in one gulp. The burning sensation instantly flowed into her lungs from between her lips and teeth. Almost half of her body was burning up. She rested her chin on one hand and tapped her chin with her slender and fair fingers. The girl he likes. Won't we know when the consort selection ceremony starts? Lin Tianfeng listened to her calm and collected tone, feeling both fortunate and troubled at the same time. Fortunately, they had been treating Dugu well during this period and didn't offend her. What troubled him was that she didn't seem to realize how shocking it was to be friends with His Highness the Son of God. What did it mean? Most importantly, she didn't seem to be worried about offending the Son of God at all. Listen to what she said just now. He wouldn't dare to say it even if he had 10 guts. But she said it. She didn't intend to save any face for His Highness the Son of God. Left with no choice, Lin Tianfeng could only lower his voice. Miss Dugu, we can't thank you enough for basking in your glory today. Please be careful in the future. Don't say anything like that again, lest you offend His Highness the Son of God. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Who offended who now? Chapter 1065. Your Highness, are you alright? After Rong Xiu walked over, Yuemo couldn't help but ask in a low voice. It was too scary. The scene just now was too scary. Miss Lu Yu's actions were too ruthless. She didn't give His Highness any leeway in front of so many people. However, His Highness couldn't bear to do anything to her, and could only let her do whatever she wanted. On the other side, Yan Qing was expressionless. Hearing this, he couldn't help but snort in his heart. Who could he blame for his own sins? He had already advised His Highness to say it, but he refused. Now look, she came straight to his door. And then, he said he would pick her up personally, but he didn't go in the end. It would be strange if that person wasn't angry. Rong Xiu's expression was normal. Just follow the procedure. Yuemo hurriedly agreed. Yes. After saying that, seeing that His Highness didn't seem to have any other plans, Yuemo anxiously nudged Yan Qing with his elbow. Hey, didn't His Highness ask you to pick up Miss Lu Yu? Why did she come with the Lin family in the end? Look at how angry that person is now. If you had done it well, His Highness wouldn't have fallen to such a state now? Yan Qing sneered. What was the use of him going? He had already knelt on one knee and begged. But that person was still indifferent. In the end, wasn't it because His Highness was in the wrong first? So what if he was cannon fodder? Could he appease that person by himself? Even His Highness couldn't do it, let alone him. In the end, His Highness should be the one suffering this. Seeing that His Highness was calm as usual, and Yan Qing was indifferent, Yuemo scratched his head and felt a headache coming on. After thinking for a while, he couldn't think of anything, and could only sigh in his heart. Sigh. Forget it. Who cares so much? Since His Highness wasn't in a hurry, he must have a way to deal with it, right? Then, Yuemo put these thoughts aside and began to busy himself with the banquet. Rong Xiu came earlier than expected. After he came in, other tribes arrived one after another. Because of his existence, the atmosphere in the hall was clearly more solemn than before. Even though he had already told them to be casual, they didn't dare to be casual. Especially the young ladies. All of them competed in beauty, and were dignified and generous. Every single word and action of theirs was extremely well behaved, as if they were afraid of making a mistake, and drawing the annoyance of the person above them. Behind them, Cold Mountain Valley, and the others also arrived. After entering, the group of people first saw Rong Xiu sitting at the head of the table. Only then did they realize that they were late, and hurriedly knelt down to pay their respects. Rong Xiu didn't mind and let them sit down. However, the faces of Han Quan and the others were still pale. They all knew very well that with such a big mistake, they probably didn't have any more chances. Only Han Zishu and a few others did not react for a while. They were only focused on Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table. He had the grace of a dragon and the grace of a phoenix, a clear and evildoer. It was normal for such a person to be tempted. It was only when Rong Xiu looked over with a tinge of coldness in his eyes that the overwhelming suppression suddenly attacked. Only then did the few of them finally wake up. If you don't want your eyes, just say so. Rong Xiu said coldly. Only then did Han Zishu and the others hurriedly lower their heads and beg for mercy. This scene made everyone in the hall feel very complicated. Dugu Yu in front said that she didn't see him, but he insisted on letting her see. Now that the few women from Cold Mountain Valley were staring at him in a daze, he actually wanted to dig out their eyeballs. Actually, it wasn't that His Highness Saint had never done such a thing before. However, with the previous incident as a foil, this incident was too strange. Why was there such a huge difference between people? After much persuasion, the group from Cold Mountain Valley finally begged for forgiveness, and went to the corner behind the crowd helplessly. At this moment, they saw that Lin Tianfeng and the others were actually sitting in the first row. Han Zishu was shocked. Just as she was about to speak, Han Quan held her back. Now that they couldn't even take care of themselves, how could they care about others? Moreover, Han Zishu and the others didn't know, but Han Quan and Shen Ting knew the pros and cons. The fact that Lin Tianfeng and the others could sit here peacefully already explained too many things. Even if they wanted to find trouble with them, they had to ask about the situation first. Thus, the group of people went down sullenly just like that. Let's see how arrogant they can be this time. Miss Dugu, it's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, we would have been bullied by them again. The few women from Grotto Heaven Cliff felt relieved. Now that everyone knows that you and His Highness Saint know each other, no one will dare to provoke you in the future. Chu Luiyue smiled and glanced at Lu Ruhai, who had been silent all this while. I hope so. After everyone arrived, the banquet officially began. First, the people from each tribe presented their congratulatory gifts to wish His Highness Saint a happy birthday. Piles of flowery words were poured out, as if they were free. Chu Luiyue was drowsy listening to them. Rong Xiu glanced at her, and saw her lazy and sleepy look. He couldn't help but laugh, and interrupt Umo, who was reading the list of gifts. All right. I'll look at these later. Today is not only Ai's birthday, but also the consort selection ceremony. Ai's time to choose a consort, so let's get started. Everyone was taken aback, and immediately became excited. This was the highlight of tonight's event. Rong Xiu waved his wrist and handed a booklet to Yin Qing. First, check the name list for the consort selection ceremony. Yes. Yin Qing opened it respectfully, and then his face froze. He quickly looked up at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu looked calm. Read it. Yin Qing swallowed his saliva with difficulty. The name list for the consort selection ceremony is as follows. Grotto Heaven Cliff. Lin Miao or Lin Shuangshuang Su Xiaoyan. Dudugiyu. Digression 6 p.m. Chapter 1066. Dugiyu. Lin Tianfeng. And the others were shocked when they heard this name. How could her name be on the list? A young lady beside Chu Luiyue lost her balance and directly dropped the wine cup in her hands onto the floor. Bang! The crisp sound of a jade cup shattering rang out, immediately drawing everyone's gazes over. The hall fell silent. Rong Xiu looked over and raised his eyebrows. Patriarch Lin, what's wrong? Lin Tianfeng hurriedly stood up. Your Highness, this Miss Dugu isn't on the Heavenly Cave Cliffs list. This so? Rong Xiu seemed surprised. He raised his voice and said to Yin Qing, let me have a look. Yin Qing hurriedly presented the booklet with both hands. Rong Xiu took it and scrutinized it. He then looked up and lightly said, I'm sorry. He raised his head and said, Duguyu's name is clearly written on it. If Patriarch Lin doesn't believe me, you can take a look for yourself. Lin Tianfeng choked. How could he not believe His Highness the Holy Sun's words? But this can't be right. The list had been delivered to Rong Xiu before Duguyu went to Heavenly Cave Cliff. Moreover, he knew that Duguyu had brought her child to find her husband. How could he dare to add her name to the list? There must be a mistake. Lin Tianfeng swallowed with difficulty. His face was tense, and his body was tense. Even though he had seen his fair share of storms, he was still stunned by this scene. The others present didn't know Duguyu's background, but he did. If someone found out, wouldn't it be? Patriarch Lin, are you saying that the Yuntian Tower made a mistake with this booklet? Rong Xiu leaned back in his chair and asked lazily. Although he spoke casually, how could Lin Tianfeng admit to this? It wasn't like he was tired of living. Why would he publicly criticize the people of Yuntian Tower for their incompetence? I didn't mean that. Lin Tianfeng's voice was much weaker. Rong Xiu smiled and threw the booklet back to Yin Qing. Forget it. This matter can't be explained in a short time. Let's leave it at that for now. It won't be too late to investigate after the matter is over. Everyone, this is your concubine selection list. How can you say it so easily? But since Rong Xiu had already spoken, the others naturally couldn't say anything. What's more, There were many people participating in the consort selection ceremony, so it didn't matter if she was there or not. Such a woman with no background was nothing to worry about. Yanqing held the booklet and felt her hands burning. He lowered his eyes again and looked at the words Duguyu that had clearly just been added. His heart was in turmoil. No wonder His Highness wasn't anxious at all. He was waiting here. Rongxiu's slender and fair fingers tapped on the table. Continue. Yanqing took a deep breath and was about to continue reading. Han, wait. Yanqing was abruptly interrupted as soon as he opened his mouth. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The speaker was none other than Jiang Jiwan, who had followed Rongxiu in just now. She looked at Rongxiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, and frowned slightly. Her face was obviously disapproving. Your Highness, this seems inappropriate. Everyone became quieter. Ziyuan, Jiang Hetian, who was next to her, frowned and called out to her in warning. Jiang Jiwan ignored him. She pursed her lips and continued. Just now, Patriarch Lin has said that Miss Dugu is not a member of Dongtian Cliff. Logically speaking, she is not qualified to be on the list. Your Highness, it's a little inappropriate for you to ignore it, isn't it? Everyone looked at each other. Jiang Jiwan's words were not without reason. Those who could come here were the most outstanding women of their respective tribes. It was indeed strange for Duguyu to suddenly appear on the list and become one of the candidates. Rongxiu glanced at her indifferently. Today, not all of the women here are from the main families of the tribes. According to what you said, shouldn't they be removed from the list as well? Jiang Jiwan was speechless and bit her lips. Your Highness, you know I didn't mean that. What does eldest Miss Jiang mean? Only eldest Miss Jiang knows. How would I know? Rongxiu seemed to smile, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that he was alienating her from the inside out. Jiang Jiwan was stunned, and then a trace of embarrassment appeared in her eyes. After seeing Rongxiu today, she was full of joy. But then she realized that he didn't seem to want to pay attention to her. She didn't take it too seriously, because he had always been so cold. But now, in front of so many people, he didn't give her any face at all. Jiang Jiwan felt very wronged. Just as she was about to say something, Jiang Hetian spoke up. Your Highness, please forgive me for offending you. He chuckled. Your Highness, you know that this girl was spoiled by the chief when she was young, so she was a little rude. Please forgive me, Your Highness. I will teach her well when we go back. At the mention of the chief, Rongxiu's eyes darkened, and his thin lips curled up. Of course not. It's a pity that the chief is now in seclusion. Otherwise, he would be very happy to see Miss Jiang. The smile on Jiang Hetian's face froze. For some reason, the chief had been in seclusion since a few years ago, and he still hadn't come out after so long. During this time, Rongxiu had completely taken control of the Yuntian Tower. For the past few years he had been avoiding Rongxiu's limelight, but he didn't expect him to be more domineering than expected. Jiang Hetian smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything else. Father, why don't you let me continue? Jiang Jiwan couldn't help but ask. Jiang Hetian frowned. What else do you want to say? Don't you understand what His Highness the Chosen Saint means? But why? That Duguyu is clearly not qualified. And even the chief of the Lin family said that he didn't mention her name. Why does Your Highness have to go through so much trouble when it can be solved with just one sentence? Jiang Hetian was getting impatient. Why are you always so hung up on this problem? It's just Duguyu, isn't it? Even if she joined in, would it affect the final result in any way? Other things aside, just her appearance and figure alone make her no match at all. Is it worth it to quarrel with His Highness over such an insignificant person? Jiang Jiwan was speechless for a moment. As long as you perform well later, you'll be able to get the position of princess consort. There's no one more suitable than you to ascend to this position. Jiang Hetian advised in a sincere and heartfelt manner. Jiang Jiwan could only nod. But for some reason, when she thought of the conversation between His Highness and that woman, she felt a little uneasy. Yanqing continued. Han, wait. Another voice sounded. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Duguyu who spoke this time. The corners of her lips curled slightly, and she said with a smile, "I think eldest young Miss Jiang is right. Your Highness the Chosen Saint, please cross out my name." Chapter 1067. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Yen Qing's heart skipped a beat, and he turned to look at his master. On the throne, Rong Xiu's expression froze for a moment, but that momentary stiffness quickly dissipated. But his eyes gradually became as cold and lonely as a cold lake, and his whole body emitted a shocking chill. He smiled slightly and said softly, "What did you say? What did you say? Say it again." The atmosphere became strange. Many people inexplicably felt a dangerous and cold aura. The space seemed to freeze inch by inch. Chu Liyue's smile did not change. "Just now, Patriarch Lin has already made it very clear that my name is not in the list of candidates. As for why my name appeared on the list, it's actually not important. Your Highness can just cross my name off the list. It's convenient for everyone, isn't it? This kind of excitement doesn't seem very suitable for me to participate. Your Highness, don't you think so?" As she spoke, she turned to look at Yen Qing. "Such a small matter, Your Highness, you don't have to do it yourself. Yen Qing can do it for you. Lady Yen Qing, please?" Yen Qing's hand that was holding the booklet trembled slightly. He was wrong. He should not have invited her on behalf of His Highness from the beginning. Not to mention that he was rejected. It was difficult for him to withdraw now. Why was his life so miserable? He had no choice but to say, "I'm of a lowly status and have no right to do so." Rong Xiu's eyes were deep. He looked at Chu Liyue, as if he wanted to tear him apart and eat him. "Are you sure?" Yen Qing looked at Chu Liyue pleadingly. "Please. Of course I'm sure." Chu Liyue's smile deepened. "After all, I already have a fiancé." Everyone was in an uproar. "So Duguyu already had a fiancé? Did His Highness know about it?" From the looks of it, he probably didn't know, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed to leave her name on the booklet. But to reject the saint in front of him was really a little embarrassing. Lin Tianfeng and the others also looked at Chu Liyue in shock. "Fiancé? Not my husband. But Debeo." Just as everyone was whispering, Rong Xiu suddenly chuckled and opened his mouth. "So what?" In an instant, almost all the sounds disappeared. Countless pairs of eyes stared at Rong Xiu in astonishment. "Then what about it? What did that mean?" Jiang Jiwan's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and the feeling of uneasiness grew stronger. At this time, the others present also felt that something was wrong and kept quiet. The air was so tense that it was almost suffocating. Rong Xiu didn't seem to notice the crowd that was shocked by his words. He leaned back lazily with a faint smile on his face. "As long as you let him stand out and oppose this matter, I will let it go." Treacherous. Chu Liyue secretly gritted his teeth. He knew that this man was black-hearted, but he did not expect that he would not stop until he had dug his own grave. How could he say something like that? He was really shameless. Chu Liyue almost couldn't hold it in, and wanted to curse out loud. Even Dugu Ma Bao, who had been quiet all this time, could not help but lift his eyelids when he heard this. A dark light flashed in his demonic purple eyes. This kid was still the same as before. No, he had become even more powerful. To achieve his goal, he would do anything. Now in front of so many people, he did not care about his face at all. Lin Tianfeng felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He did not expect that things would develop to this point. If he still could not see through His Highness's intentions, he would have wasted all these years. Wasn't it obvious that he wanted Duguyu to participate in the consort selection? He did not need to ask to know how that name appeared on the list. But the key was that Duguyu had already said that she had a fiancé, and His Highness still said that. No matter how high her fiancé's status was, could it be higher than His Highness? Not to mention whether that man was here now. Even if he was, would he dare to stand out when His Highness said so? At this point, there seemed to be no solution to the matter. Lin Tianfeng could not help but look at Chu Liyue, and then at Dugu Ma Bao, who had been quietly standing beside her, and sighed. This child was only 3 or 4 years old. How innocent. He hesitated for a moment, and was about to speak when Lin Qifei pulled him back. Father, please calm down. Lin Tianfeng was a little hesitant. But, Her Highness is really, she is alone. If we don't help her then. Lin Qifei shook his head lightly. Let's wait and see. If you stand out now, you won't be of much help. Lin Tianfeng knew that he was telling the truth. Grotto Heaven Cliff did not have a high status. And it was all because of Dugiyu that they were able to receive such treatment. If His Highness wanted to do something, even the Jiang clan in the Immortal Water Tomb could not stop him, let alone them. In the end, Lin Tianfeng could only nod his head. No matter what, she saved your life. If anything happens, we can't just sit by and do nothing. Lin Qifei nodded lightly. There seemed to be an undercurrent in his light eyes. He looked at Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue without batting an eyelid, then lowered his eyes. The relationship between these two. What's so good about that Duguyu? His Highness has taken a liking to her? In a secluded corner of the main hall, the people in Cold Mountain Valley were stunned by the scene before them. Han Zishu's eyes widened in disbelief. With that kind of appearance, that kind of background, and most importantly, she already has a fiancé. How could she win His Highness's favor? What is His Highness thinking? Sure. Han Quan still had a bit of rationality left and hurriedly stopped her. Don't criticize His Highness. Han Zishu shrank back, but her face was still filled with dissatisfaction. I'm just curious. What the hell is going on? I don't know how that bitch bewitched His Highness. Before they could finish their sentence, a young woman in front suddenly turned around. Her makeup was exquisite, and her looks were top-notch. Clearly, she was also here to participate in the consort selection. But at this moment, there was a hint of mockery on her face. She looked at Han Zishu and the others as if she was looking at fools. Don't say things like that. Be careful not to be overheard by others. That Miss Dugu was acquainted with His Highness in the past. If you're not afraid of getting into trouble, go ahead and continue. With that, she turned around with a cold smile. Not only were they late, but they were also brainless. These people in Cold Mountain Valley were really tired of living. Han Zishu and the others were confused. That Dugu knew His Highness the Saint? How could it be? In this atmosphere that was almost suffocating, Chu Luiyue was the first to recover from her shock. She narrowed her eyes and suddenly smiled. Your Highness, what if I insist on saying no? Digression, it felt good to cheat his wife. It felt good to cheat her all the time. Chapter 1068. Little Yuer, why is your temper still so stubborn? At this moment, a low and old voice suddenly came from outside. Everyone looked toward the door. An elder suddenly came in. There wasn't the slightest bit of origin power fluctuations on his body, but the inexplicable aura around him caused people to secretly feel reverence. This was definitely a top-notch expert. Chu Luiyue was slightly stunned. The reason for that was because she knew that old man. 36 Respected Elder Ming, why are you here? Rong Xiu was about to stand up and welcome him personally, when 36 Respected Elder Ming hurriedly waved his hand. His Highness the Holy Sun's birthday banquet. And it's also a concubine selection ceremony. We naturally have to come and join in the fun. At this moment, after hearing the identity of the person who came, everyone also stood up and bowed. Greetings to 36 Respected Elder Ming. Many people were secretly shocked. This was an expert among the experts of the Yuntian Tower. Even among the dozens of respected elders, he was definitely the one with the highest strength and status. Usually, 36 Respected Elder Ming was mostly invisible and never got involved in these matters. Who knew what had happened today, for him to suddenly come? 36 Respected Elder Ming laughed loudly. I just came out of seclusion and heard about this. Naturally, I rushed over without stopping. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Ming Yao, who was at the side. Ming Yao quivered and hurriedly bowed in greeting. Respected Elder, why did you come out of seclusion today? No one actually came to inform us in advance. Apologies for not coming out to welcome you. I hope. After I came out of seclusion, I immediately rushed over when I heard the news. Naturally, no one informed us. 36 Respected Elder Ming snorted. If I came a little later, Wouldn't I have missed this meticulously planned and lively banquet today? Ming Yao was drenched in cold sweat and didn't know what to say for a moment. It seemed that 36 respected Elder Ming already knew everything. He was the one who did his best to facilitate the concubine selection. Previously, 36 respected Elder Ming had repeatedly warned him not to have any ideas about this. However, he still secretly did it when 36 respected Elder Ming was in seclusion. He had originally thought that by the time this person came out of seclusion, everything would have been settled. At that time, even if 36 respected Elder Ming was dissatisfied, what was done could not be undone, and he would not be able to say much. I didn't expect him to appear so quickly. This time he was caught red-handed. Just when Ming Yao thought that 36 respected Elder Ming might criticize him severely in front of everyone, he saw that 36 respected Elder Ming did not say anything more to him. Instead, he turned around and walked to the other side. Under everyone's gaze, he walked to Lin Tianfeng's table. This was actually the first time Lin Tianfeng had seen this legendary existence. However, he was very clear that 36 revered Elder Ming had also come to find Duguyu. As expected, 36 respected Elder Ming's gaze landed on Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue frowned slightly, but soon relaxed as a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. Honorable Elder 36 Ming? Ming 36 was stared at by her clear, dark eyes, and immediately felt guilty. He clenched his fist and coughed. Cough, lass, His Highness the Holy Sun has spoken words of gold. How can you go back on your words in front of everyone? Just treat it as if you're participating for fun. Anyway, it won't affect anything, right? Everyone was confused. Participating for fun? 36 respected Elder Ming. Is it really appropriate for you to say that? So many people present have a cautious and expectant attitude towards this matter. What do you mean by letting Duguyu participate for fun? Looking at 36 respected Elder Ming's expression, Chu Luyue suddenly had a thought. She narrowed her eyes and glanced at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, without batting an eyelid. Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Chu Luyue's eyes flickered. All right. With 36 respected Elder Ming's interference, and Chu Luyue's help, this matter finally proceeded smoothly. The atmosphere was a little strange. Many people started whispering to each other. So 36 respected Elder Ming actually knows that Duguyu. What exactly is her background? I'm not sure. But since she came with those people from Cave Heaven Cliff's Lin family, logically speaking, she shouldn't be of noble birth, right? That's true. But His Highness the Holy Sun and 36 respected Elder Ming's attitude towards her seems to be very unusual. This girl looks ordinary. I really don't know what His Highness sees in her. So what? Today, all the noble ladies of the various clans are here. How can there be a place for her to stand? But then again, why is only 36 respected Elder Ming here for such an important occasion? Where are the other respected elders? Perhaps the other respected elders have their own matters to deal with, or are cultivating. Didn't you see that 36 respected Elder Ming also came out of seclusion and hurried over? Moreover, not all the respected elders of Yuntian Tower are convinced by His Highness the Holy Sun. Sure, we can't say such things. Everyone was discussing. Jiang Juan slowly pinched the corner of her clothes. Jiang Hetian turned back to look at her and saw her aggrieved eyes. He sighed and comforted her. All right, Ziyuan. Daddy knows that you are aggrieved, but His Highness the Holy Sun has always been like this. No one can stop him from doing what he wants to do. Don't worry. According to Duguyu's status, even if she is chosen, she will at most have the fate of a concubine. She doesn't even have the qualifications to be a concubine, let alone a princess consort. You don't have to worry. I'm not worried about this. Jiang Ziyuan bit her lips, and her voice was choked with sobs. I'm just sad. He must be interested in this girl. Otherwise he wouldn't have done this. She had known him for so long, but he had never done anything especially for her. How could she not be sad when compared to him? What made it even harder for her to accept was that Duguyu didn't seem to want to accept her kindness, even though she was being so generous. Rong Xiu was the most handsome man in the world. How could her so-called fiancé compare to him? Jiang Hetian patted her hand. As long as the person sitting next to him is you, he will be yours for the rest of his life. As for the rest, why should you care? These words finally made Jiang Jiwen snap out of her daze. She held back the tears in her eyes, nodded her head forcefully, and said stubbornly, "Of course I won't let others take away everything that belongs to me." Jiang Hetian heaved a sigh of relief and slowly smiled. "This is the young mistress of the Jiang clan in the immortal water tomb. You are my precious daughter." Jiang Jiwen pursed her lips and looked up slightly at Chu Luyue. Thinking about everything that had happened just now, she felt even more uncomfortable. How could such a girl stay by his side? It would be best to find a way to chase her out from the beginning. Umo quickly brought a chair over and invited 36 respected Elder Ming to sit to the left of Rong Xiao. As Chu Luyue listened to the crowd's discussion, she glanced over. Rong Xiao seemed to have specially prepared seats for the respected elders. Chapter 1069. Miss Dugu, it turns out that you even know 36 respected Elder Ming? Lin Tianfeng's current feelings could no longer be described as shock. First, it was Lord Yin Qing, then His Highness the Holy Sun, and now even the reclusive 36 respected Elder Ming was familiar with her. Was she really just an ordinary outsider? He wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Chu Luyue regained her senses and nodded nonchalantly. "We're not very familiar with each other, we've met a few times." Lin Tianfeng's eyes were filled with resentment. How could she have such an attitude after meeting him a few times? It was rumored that 36 respected Elder Ming didn't even care about the Ming clan's matters. If it was really nothing, why would he say such things to her? Lin Tianfeng felt that he couldn't understand the woman in front of him anymore. She looked ordinary, but she was able to cure Zhifei's illness as an 8th-grade celestial physician. She seemed to have no background, but she had dealings with the most honorable person in Yuntian Tower. She seemed to be hiding many secrets that couldn't be seen through. Lin Zhifei looked at her meaningfully, then his gaze swept past Duguma Bao. Perhaps his guess was true. Then, Yin Qing was finally able to continue reading from the booklet. Fortunately, there were no more accidents after that. When he finished reading, he closed the booklet and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Rong Xiao leaned against the chair, languid and calm, with a noble aura that came from his bones. "I like to play chess, and I also like women who play chess well. So the first round is chess." As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and countless silver lights flew out. The bright lights intertwined in midair and quickly formed a huge chessboard in the center of the hall. Whoever can play with eye to the end will be the winner of this round. The hall was silent for a moment, and then there were whispers. Who would have thought that His Highness the Holy Sun's first round of choosing a consort would be a game of chess? However, many people knew that His Highness the Holy Sun liked to play chess. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with doing this. Jiang Hetian glanced at Jiang Juan with a smile. Don't you usually like and are good at this? From this, it can be seen that His Highness still cares about you." Jiang Jiwan's cheeks were dyed with a touch of crimson, and she was a little shy. "Father, don't tease me. Did father say something wrong? You've been learning chess from the patriarch since you were 3 years old, and your skills are exquisite. There are very few people in the world who can defeat you. Who else but you can claim first place?" Jiang Jiwan's face turned even redder. Looking at the shining chessboard, her eyes were filled with excitement and joy. It seemed that he did remember. Yin Qing asked, "Who wants to be the first to come up and give it a try?" Everyone immediately quieted down. Soon a voice came from the crowd. "Yunwu Mountain's Pei Pei is willing to give it a try." Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. It was a woman in a crimson outfit. She was tall and slender. She had a fair oval face and delicate facial features. Among the many women who dressed up meticulously, she wasn't the top beauty. However, the valiant and heroic spirit between her eyebrows added a different kind of elegance to her. She had a wide saber at her waist, as if she was ready to draw it and fight at any time. After saying that, she walked straight to the center of the hall and stood on the huge chessboard. "The eldest miss of Yunwu Mountain, I heard that she has a fierce personality and does things in a hurry. Seeing her today, it's true. She dares to be the first to go up. She's really brave. I wonder how many steps she can take. I heard that His Highness the Holy Sun's chess skills are very good. No matter how many steps she can still show her face in front of His Highness. At least it's better than being unknown, right? No matter how the people around her discussed, Pei Pei acted as if she didn't hear them. She raised her chin and looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu said, "Miss Pei, please go first." "Thank you, Your Highness." Pei Pei responded with a grunt, and then started very nimbly. Dark red force gathered in her palm. Then with a flick of her wrist, she hit the chessboard with the force. Buzz! A slight fluctuation was felt. A dark red round chess piece instantly appeared on the chessboard. "Your Highness, please." However, just as Pei Pei finished speaking, a golden chess piece quickly appeared on the chessboard. Rongxiu said indifferently, "This chessboard contains all the chess games that I have seen and played. Therefore, it can automatically place a piece." Pei Pei was stunned. In other words, if I can't play a new game, Your Highness won't make a move personally? Rongxiu nodded. Regretful sighs could be heard in the hall. Some of the women, who were ready to make a move, immediately withered. Didn't this mean that if they couldn't play to the same level as His Highness, they wouldn't even have a chance to fight him? If they weren't strong enough, there was no point in going up. It would be very embarrassing. A hint of astonishment flashed across Pei Pei's face, but she quickly recovered. She didn't say anything and continued. However, every time she placed a piece, the chessboard would quickly react and give her a countermove. More importantly, with every move, the pressure on the chessboard would become heavier. Pei Pei gradually felt the pressure, and the speed at which she played slowed down. Finally, after about half an hour, Pei Pei was no longer able to withstand the terrifying pressure. No matter how she tried, the origin power she unleashed would dissipate an inch or so away from the chessboard. She couldn't place a piece at all. At this moment, everyone could see that this chessboard was much stronger and more complicated than they had expected. After another failed attempt, Pei Pei simply chose to give up. "I admit defeat." UMO was in charge of recording. Yunwu Mountain's Pei Pei, 11 moves. Everyone had different expressions. In fact, Pei Pei could already be considered as one of the most outstanding women among the many women. Although Yunwu Mountain couldn't be compared to the Immortal Water Mausoleum, it was still one of the top clans in terms of strength and resources. As for Pei Pei, she was a genius carefully nurtured by Yunwu Mountain. At the age of 21, she had already broken through to the peak of the 9th level. Even she could only play 11 moves on the chessboard, let alone others. Pei Pei didn't seem to care. After bowing to Rongxiu, she simply went down. Next, Yan Qing shouted in a deep voice. Everyone looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. However, the position of consort was too tempting. After some hesitation, many women still chose to give it a try. However, most of them couldn't even compare to Pei Pei. Some couldn't even place a piece on the chessboard. Thus, although many people tried, it didn't take long. Soon, everyone gradually calmed down. At this time, those who dared to go up had all done so. Only 2 women were more outstanding than Pei Pei, but they couldn't even make 20 moves. In the silence, many people looked at Jiang Jiwan. Chapter 1070. Jiang Jiwan of the Tomb of Immortal Water was a famous genius in the Divine Ruins world. Jiang Jiwan stood up, walked toward the huge chessboard and stood still. She was beautiful to begin with, and today, she had dressed up meticulously. Naturally, she looked even more alluring. Moreover, she had only put on light makeup, and her outfit was simple and elegant. Compared to the other women who had put on makeup, she looked even more elegant and refined. Under the faint glow of the chessboard, she stood tall, graceful, and gentle. She had already surpassed the other women before her. She glanced at the chessboard, raised her hand, and placed a blue chess piece. Like before, the chessboard reacted quickly, and a golden chess piece appeared in another position. Jiang Jiwan didn't hesitate at all, and continued to place her chess piece. Time passed slowly. Jiang Jiwan had already made 20 moves, becoming the person who had made the most moves so far. But she still didn't stop. In fact, she didn't even slow down the speed of her chess game. Compared to the others before her, she was clearly much more relaxed. The hall gradually quieted down, and everyone had different expressions. Only a few people were discussing and exclaiming in low voices. As expected of the young miss of the Tomb of Immortal Water, her strength is indeed not something that we can compare to. It's been rumored that she's going to be the princess consort. Now who else could it be? She's only 22 this year, right? I heard that she's already become a demigod. Hiss, no wonder she's so powerful. This kind of appearance, this kind of background, really can't be compared. I heard that when she was young, she spent most of her time in the Yuntian Tower, and the Yuntian Tower's patriarch has always doted on her. Her chess skills were also learned from him. Does this mean that His Highness the Holy Sun set up this test for her? Jiang Jiwan was focused on her chess game. But she wasn't weak, and her 5 senses were sharp, so she could hear most of what was being said. A sweet feeling welled up in her heart. She placed another chess piece, and at the same time, looked at Rong Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table, and smiled. Your Highness, please take this. With this move, it was time for him to make a move. However, when she placed her chess piece, another golden chess piece appeared on the chessboard. Jiang Jiwan's smile froze on her face. Chu Luyue poured a glass of wine out of boredom. I thought that this eldest Miss Jiang was really powerful, but I didn't expect. Did she overestimate herself, or did God underestimate Rong Xiu? Did he really think that he could force Rong Xiu to act personally? Looking at the huge chessboard again, she suddenly narrowed her eyes and leaned closer to Dugu Debao, who was sitting at the side, and lowered her voice. Debao, why do I feel that this chessboard is somewhat familiar? Dugu Mabao's expression did not change. All chessboards in the world look the same. What's there to be familiar about? Something's not right. Chu Luyue shook his head and said firmly, I must have seen it before, this aura. Suddenly, her pupils shrank, and she looked at Dugu Mabao in disbelief. You pulled me down before. Bang! There was a sudden explosion on the chessboard. A terrifying impact spread out in all directions. Jiang Jiwan was caught off guard, and she was the first to bear the brunt of it, and instantly flew out. Ziyuan! Jiang Hetian was shocked, and he immediately got up and threw out a force. Jiang Jiwan's body was instantly enveloped by a translucent barrier. With the help of this barrier, Jiang Jiwan finally landed safely. She looked at the chessboard in shock. The blue chess piece on it was already in a dead end. Digression. Continue at 6 p.m. Chapter 1071. Jiang Jiwan lost. Umo raised his hand and wrote, Jiang Jiwan of the Tomb of Immortal Water. 43 moves. This number was already the best compared to the previous girls, but she still couldn't reach the end, and asked Rong Xiu to make a move. Crash! The chess pieces on the chessboard instantly disappeared, and returned to their original state. The hall was silent. Everyone's eyes moved back and forth between the chessboard and Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Ziyuan felt as if there was a dagger on her back. She felt a burning pain on her face. She looked at the chessboard in front of her in disbelief. How could this be? This game was so difficult. If it were someone else, they probably wouldn't be able to reach this point. That was why she was sure that this game had reached the point where Rong Xiu needed to make a move. But no. This also meant that someone had once taken more steps than her on this chessboard. But who could that person be? Could it be the clan leader, or 36 respected Elder Ming? Jiang Jiwan couldn't guess. Alright Ziyuan, you're already first. Don't think too much about the rest. Jiang Hetian comforted her. No one knew a daughter better than a father. Of course, he knew that Jiang Jiwan was very unhappy and aggrieved. She probably wanted to wait for Rong Xiu to make a move, so that the two of them could play together. Jiang Jiwan took a deep breath, and forced a smile. Thank you, father. I understand. She just felt a little regretful. Rong Xiu's chess skills were superb. She had known for a long time. It was a pity that she had never played a proper game of chess with him. Most of the time, it was the clan leader who played with him while she watched from the side. Every time she was eager to play, She wanted to set up the chessboard and play with him to her heart's content. However, he always rejected her with one reason or another. She thought that with today's opportunity, she could. Jiang Hetian comforted her in a low voice. His Highness is very good at this game. You still have some gaps. When you come to the Yuntian Tower in the future, you can learn more from His Highness. Jiang Jiwan's originally aggrieved and unwilling expression suddenly turned into a trace of shyness. Then she nodded seriously. Yes, I know. Chu Luiyue, who was originally resting his chin on one hand and watching all of this with a lazy expression, raised his eyebrows. In the future, come to the Yuntian Tower? Learn more from His Highness. A smile appeared on Chu Luiyue's lips. So they had already made their plans for the future? Yanqing looked at the crowd. Is there anything else you want to continue? There was complete silence. Haha, Madam Yanqing. Basically everyone who wants to try has already come up. Moreover, the best results have already come out. I think this round should be over, right? Jiang Hetian laughed. Although he looked amiable, his tone was incomparably firm and did not leave any room for refutation. Wait a minute. A clear and calm female voice sounded, breaking the silence. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly, containing a hint of a smile. I want to give it a try too. You? Jiang Hetian asked instinctively, looking at her with a somewhat suspicious gaze. Just now, everyone had more or less seen how difficult this chess game was. If she still wanted to come up at this time, wouldn't she be asking for trouble? Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. Why can't I? Yes. Of course you can. Before Jiang Hetian could say anything, 36 respected Elder Ming, who was sitting above, hurriedly urged her. Little girl, go quickly. Everyone. Chu Luiyue. 36 respected Elder Ming seemed to have just realized that this was a little inappropriate. He quickly coughed, then quickly shot Rong Xiu a look. How is it? I've done a good job, haven't I? Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly, and there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. Praised the respected elders. Chu Luiyue turned to look at Dugu Mabao beside her, pinched his chubby little face, and snorted softly. I'll settle your score with you when I get back. Dugu Mabao's eyelids twitched. It was rare that he did not get angry, because his precious face was being pinched. Seeing his reaction, Chu Luiyue was even more certain of her guess. She collected her thoughts, dusted her clothes, and walked toward the chessboard. Please make way. Chu Luiyue's smile was very polite when she came up to her. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips, feeling more and more uncomfortable. However, she forced herself to hold it in, and did not flare up. She walked back with Jiang Hetian. However, her eyes did not move away from Chu Luiyue. She wanted to see how capable this woman was. A light flashed on the huge chessboard. Chu Luiyue stood with her hands behind her back straight. Her long black hair fell like clouds, and she was dressed in a neat red dress. She seemed to be able to attract everyone's attention just by standing there. She stared at the chessboard for a moment, then raised her hand and placed a chess piece. A red force flew out and hit the chessboard instantly. Buzz! The chessboard vibrated. A golden go piece appeared right after. That familiar feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Chu Luiyue did not hesitate at all, and placed her chess pieces continuously. Soon, the crowd was shocked to find that she did not need to think at all when she was playing chess. Her movements were so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Sometimes, before the golden chess piece could fully form on the chessboard, Chu Luiyue would have already made her move. How is she so fast? It couldn't have been done randomly, right? Many people in the crowd began to question her. It can't be. Look at the chessboard, isn't she moving all the time? She's not playing randomly. She is really good at this. Her thoughts are quick and flexible. This ability is probably even better than Lady Zhang's. At this moment, Jiang Jiwan's expression had changed from indifference to shock. Of course, she could tell that Dugu Yu's skill level was higher than hers. And not just by a little. Her gaze was fixed on the chessboard. At the beginning, she could still keep up, but gradually, the game became more complicated, and she had to think for a while before making each move. However, Dugu Yu did not stop at all. Soon Jiang Jiwan's mind was in a mess. She's about to make the 43rd move. Suddenly someone shouted, "If she makes one more move, she'll beat Lady Jiang." Before the voice could finish, Chu Luiyue waved her hand and placed another chess piece without hesitation. Many people sucked in a cold breath. Duguyu's performance had already surpassed Jiang Jiwan's. "Oh my god, I didn't expect Duguyu to be so good. How far do you think she'll go?" "I really can't tell. But, looking at how relaxed she is now, it shouldn't be a problem for her to ask His Highness for help, right? Even Lady Jiang couldn't do it. If Duguyu really succeeds then..." Jiang Jiwan bit her lip. Chu Luiyue did not care about her surroundings. Now, there was only the gigantic chessboard and Rong Xiao in front of her. Buzz! She placed a chess piece. This time, no golden chess piece appeared on the chessboard. Chu Luiyue raised her head slightly and looked at the man sitting on the seat of honor opposite her. She raised her eyebrows and smiled brightly. "Your Highness, please." Chapter 1072. Her smile was bright and resplendent, and her eyes were like stars. Her facial features were clearly ordinary, but because of this smile, they instantly became lively. Many people were slightly stunned. This woman looked ordinary at first glance, but upon closer inspection, she seemed to be extremely beautiful. Just the slight ripple of light in her jade-like eyes was enough to move people's hearts. Rong Xiao didn't look surprised at all. Instead, he smiled slightly. His originally cold and noble eyes instantly melted like the ice in early spring. There seemed to be a vortex in his deep eyes that could easily swallow people and make them sink. He raised his hand, and a golden stream of light flew out. Buzz! A golden chess piece fell, blocking the path of Chu Luiyue's chess piece. His Highness really made a move. She shouldn't be able to hold on much longer, right? It's rumored that His Highness's chess skills are superb. So what? Even if she loses now, she's still number one. What's more, she's the only one who can ask His Highness to make a move. Countless eyes were focused on the two people facing each other in the main hall. They were all focused, afraid that they would miss a single thing. However, not everyone was like this. At the very least, Jiang Jiwan wasn't in the mood to patiently watch at this time. Her heart seemed to be clenched by something, and her chest felt suffocated. The trace of discomfort caused by Duguyu at the beginning quickly spread to her whole body at this time. "Ziyuan, how are you?" Jiang Hetian frowned, his eyes full of worry. Jiang Jiwan forced a smile. "Dad, don't worry. I'm fine." How could she be fine? She had always been outstanding since she was a child. Whether it was family background, appearance, or talent, she almost easily crushed others. She had always been the most eye-catching existence in the crowd. But now, all the glory had been taken away by the woman named Duguyu. She was obviously so ordinary, and there wasn't a single highlight on her. But she seemed to have some kind of magic that could easily attract everyone's attention. Needless to say, the level she was showing at this time was extraordinary. Jiang Hetian glanced at the chessboard. "Ziyuan, she should be about to lose now, right?" He didn't really understand what was going on, but based on his past experience, Duguyu shouldn't be able to hold on for long. If she lost faster, Ziyuan's mood might be slightly better. However, Jiang Jiwan clenched her fists. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something, and she couldn't say a word. It wasn't that she couldn't understand the intense battle on the chessboard, but it was precisely because she could understand that she felt even worse. Because compared to Rong Xiao, Duguyu was actually not too inferior. The two of them were clearly evenly matched. Jiang Jiwan knew that she was definitely a genius in this aspect. She could easily crush 99% of the people here. However, compared to the woman standing in front of the chessboard with a calm and relaxed expression, it instantly dimmed and was not worth mentioning. Time slowly passed. Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue had each placed their pieces dozens of times. The situation on the chessboard became more and more tangled, and the battle between the two sides became more and more tragic. Chu Luiyue's red pieces were like a flood dragon, chasing Rong Xiao relentlessly, trying to encircle and suppress him from all directions. His chess style was fierce. On the other hand, Rong Xiao was more conservative, but his defense was tight, and there was still room for him to advance and retreat. Both sides had their own advantages, and the battle was extremely fierce. The two of them went back and forth. The chessboard, which was already shining brightly, was now even more dazzling. Rongshio's eyebrows twitched slightly. Even across the chessboard, he could still keenly perceive the biting cold air coming from the opposite side. He rubbed his temples helplessly, and a helpless and doting smile flashed across his eyes. If this could make her calm down, it would be good. Finally, when the huge chessboard was almost filled to the brim, the crimson flood dragon finally trapped the patch of golden light. The fierce battle, and the chaotic flowing light, had already attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. Everyone unconsciously held their breaths. The atmosphere became more and more tense. Life and death. It was at this moment. Chu Luiyue looked at the chessboard in front of her. That familiar feeling had almost reached its peak at this moment. Countless scenes flashed through her mind. Those scenes that were once blurry and could not be seen clearly seemed to be gradually becoming clearer at this moment. But for some reason, there seemed to be a layer of fog in front of her. She knew very well that she was only one step away from seeing everything clearly. Within her dantian, her force surged wildly and finally gathered in her palm. Then, she raised her hand and was about to place a piece. But for some reason, her hand suddenly trembled slightly. Something seemed to be gushing out from the bottom of her heart. She clenched her teeth and abruptly flung out the origin power. A red chess piece landed on the chessboard. Buzz! It was like a sword cutting through the throat. The golden color instantly dissipated, and it rapidly transformed into countless tiny golden light spots, spreading in all directions. Rongshio raised his hand, and the golden color that filled the sky quickly flew back. At the same time, the chessboard also silently dissipated. On the opposite side, the otherworldly and demonic man's lips curled up slightly. You win. Crack. The black pyramid in Chu Luiyue's dantian suddenly cracked open a third crack. A bright golden light pierced through it. In an instant, it was as if the thin veil in front of her had suddenly been lifted. Those scenes became clear. Digression, nothing today. Chapter 1073. Rongshio, you're going easy on me again. She heard her own annoyed voice in her head. One day, I'll beat you even if you don't go easy on me. The young man in front of her leaned back in his chair and picked up the ginger tea beside him. He squinted his deep phoenix eyes lazily and said slowly, Sure. His voice was deep and pleasant, like the wind blowing across the strings of a zither. As he spoke, the cup of tea was brought to his lips. His thin scarlet lips covered the mouth of the white jade porcelain cup gently. Hey Rongshio, that's my tea. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye and saw that he had taken the wrong cup. Rongshio paused and looked up. Her originally cold eyes seemed to be dyed with some warmth in an instant. It was like the setting sun by the river in the evening. The brilliant afterglow was reflected in the water, making it the color of the sky and the water. Oh, is that so? A few vague syllables came from between his lips and teeth, with a hint of a smile. Just when she thought that he was going to put down the teacup, she suddenly saw the man in front of her move the teacup forward again. His lips moved slightly, and he gently folded the remaining trace of rouge over it. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat, and she was stunned on the spot. Even though she was usually very cunning, she did not expect him to do this. He took a sip of tea, and then put the teacup down slowly. Her lips were especially moist because they were stained with tea. Chu Luiyue's face suddenly turned red. It was as if a flame was burning. The scorching heat swept over and almost engulfed her in an instant. He seemed to be unaware of it and raised his eyebrows slightly. So you drink ginger tea every day? Chu Luiyue seemed to have finally found her voice and snorted softly. Ginger tea is bitter. Who told you to drink other people's tea? Now you're suffering, aren't you? Oh. Rongshio supported himself with one hand and looked at her with a faint smile. I feel that this tea is sweet and delicious. The others can't even compare to a tenth of it. Chu Luiyue finally couldn't sit still any longer and stood up abruptly. I suddenly remembered that I haven't practiced the chi sword art yet, so I'll go back first. With that he left in a hurry. Rongshio looked over. She was walking down the small path on the cliff. Her footsteps were light, and her light-colored dress fluttered like a butterfly. Her fine black hair fluttered in the wind, lively and lively. After walking for some distance, she suddenly stopped and turned back to look at the cliff. Rong Xiao seemed to have expected this. He raised his teacup and saluted her from afar. If you want to teach me a thing or two, Rong Xiao is always waiting. The woman immediately disappeared at an even faster speed. Rong Xiao's lips curled into a deep smile. That day, the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. A man dressed in white was sitting in a pavilion on the cliff. He leaned against the cliff, and the mountain breeze blew up the corners of his clothes, making him look like an immortal. And beside his hand was a cup of tea, bitter and sweet at the same time. Those scenes gradually disappeared. Chu Liuyue's eyes gradually focused. Everything in front of her was reflected in her eyes again. She opened her mouth. Rong Xiao's eyebrows moved slightly, and there seemed to be waves in his eyes. Miss Duga, what's wrong? He lowered his voice, but there was a subtle calming power in it. Chu Liyue finally woke up completely. She closed her eyes and looked at Rong Xiao not far away. At that time, whether it was Rong Xiao or her, they didn't seem to be very old. Between their eyebrows, there was still the youthfulness and vitality unique to teenagers. At that time, they should have known each other for a while. Although she couldn't remember exactly how long. But she clearly remembered that her heart was beating violently at that time. That was the first time. Her heart was beating like a drum, her face was hot, and she didn't know what to do. But there was also an indescribable subtle joy. It was around then or even earlier. She had already fallen in love with that person. From that time, until now, she didn't know how many days had passed. But they were still together in the end. Chu Liuyue's eyes flashed, and she shook her head. It's nothing, I just remembered some things. She raised her chin slightly, raised her eyebrows and smiled. For this round, I should be number one, right? There was silence. Everyone looked at the woman standing in the middle of the hall, and for a moment, they were still in a daze. She was number one just like that? Previously, so many people wanted to ask His Highness to help, but they couldn't. But not only did she do it, she even won against His Highness. Rong Xiao's lips curled slightly, and there was a hint of a smile on his face. You're number one, you deserve it. Jiang Jiwan broke her delicately manicured nails. An intense pain came from her fingertips, and her face turned even paler. But these feelings, compared to the frustration and unwillingness in her heart, were not worth mentioning. How could this be? She was supposed to be number one. From the beginning until now, she had never doubted that she was the most outstanding one here, and also the most suitable and qualified person to be the princess consort. She had taken it for granted, so she didn't feel any pressure. Until now, when Duguyu snatched the first place, she finally realized that there was always someone better. The position that she thought was at her fingertips was actually not that secure for her to sit on. In fact, if the women from other tribes had won, she wouldn't feel so bad. She would rather let Pei Pei and the others win than see Duguyu standing in the middle and being the focus of everyone. This was because Rong Xiao clearly treated her differently. Jiang Jiwan's heart surged with an unprecedented sense of crisis. Jiang Hitian turned his head and saw Jiang Jiwan's embarrassed and wronged expression. He frowned. Even he didn't expect that the first place would be snatched by Duguyu, who came out of nowhere. Ziyuan must be feeling terrible. She was used to being proud. How could she accept such an outcome? Ziyuan, don't worry, this is only the first stage. You just have to work hard and use your full strength. You will definitely be able to turn the tables. Jiang Hitian comforted her patiently. But she won the first place, Jiang Jiwan murmured. So what? Don't tell me that the Yuntian Tower can really let such an unidentified woman become the princess consort. Jiang Hitian was very confident. As long as Rong Xiao weighed the pros and cons, he would definitely leave the princess consort to the immortal water tomb. As for the others, those lowly concubines, he could just pick any one of them. None of that mattered. As he spoke, he saw from the corner of his eye that there was blood dripping from Jiang Jiwan's palm. He was shocked. Ziyuan, your hand. Jiang Juan came back to her senses and subconsciously leaned her hand back, gritting her teeth. I'm fine. Father is right. I will take back the first place later. She would never let Duguyu steal the limelight again. Thinking of this, she looked up at Rong Xiao. Your Highness, the first stage is over. Then let's start the second stage. She had to win this second stage. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.